Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
An amazing event happened on planet Earth in the beautiful city of Beijing, China. The cosmic ray technology was shown for the first time to the public by the financial arm of Keshe Foundation, the American Mark Ray Corporation, which is traded on the US stock exchange. Mr. Keshe himself went to China to show creation of materials from the magnetic fields by using obsolete technology, or what we call rotating gas reactors with electric motors. He's using these old reactors as a starting point for humanity to slowly accept the evolution in science and technology. For 3 days straight, the reactors were run and shown live on Zoom so that anybody from around the world who wanted to could come in and see. Black particles like dust start appearing on the white paper sheets around the reactors. These particles are being created through the reactors and the fields of the universe and the inertia of our planet. They are not coming from the room. There were 4 sets of pairs of reactors with red and green gases spinning in them. We were told they were not CH3 and CuO, but something else. They were set up in a star formation on tables inside the front windows of the Intercontinental Hotel. Anybody passed on the street could see them. White papers and spoons were spread around the reactors to catch the materials being formed from the fields. Some knowledge seekers were able to capture on video when black specks suddenly appeared on the paper, like out of thin air. It was very interesting to witness when energy first appears in the matter state. As time went on and the fields built up and changed strength, the specks formed into bigger pieces and some elongated, and some changed color into gold. This is the first time the public has been able to freely witness the creation of matter from energy. At the end of 3 days, Mr. Keshe collected more particles and showed everyone attending. An interesting thing occurred. When he touched the black dust on the paper with his finger, it turned gold. He said it interacted with the fields of the inertia of the earth through his finger. This phenomenon was written about in ancient times when the Greek god Midas touched things and it was said they turned to gold. What we witness here is how everything in the universe is created, from our cells to the planets and even cancer.
And welcome each and all to the Keshe American Knowledge Team. Not that the knowledge is any different in America than it is in China or it is in any parts of the universe, but it is universal knowledge. And of course, the demonstration we saw in Beijing, which was the opening video in 2025 May, It's about a 1-year anniversary, is just astounding that material can be made out of energy. But of course, this is the whole process of the creation, and the Big Bang Theory had a couple of pins put in it during that demonstration, and that process will continue. As we understand, the matter state is coming out of the energy dimension. The energy appears first, and as it sort of slows down and combines with inertia, we get the matter state. And not only can metals be processed and created this way, but of course, you can create copper, you can create cotton, you can create oil. So Mr. Keshe keeps asking us, the foundation is asking us, why is humanity fighting for these sort of resources, which we think are limited, when we know the resources of the universe are unlimited? So it's a beautiful demonstration of what can be done, but also I think this reflects on our own reactors within our own structure. As he said, you can create gold or you can create even cancer. So how does that mesh with one another? You would think this is a totally scientific process, but apparently our structure works exactly the same way, through the emotions. And of course, that's part of the purifying of the emotions to get closer to the creator. We know there is a way to do that by thinking, speaking, and acting good. And if you need a little help, you can play the game of peace and enlightenment, which hopefully will show. And as we understand, the ethos sinks in as you play the game. So, again, it's not much work on our part, but it is a participatory structure. Everything is being prepared, as Mr. Keshe said. The party is being set, but it takes quite a while to set up the whole thing. But it's all being set up for you. It's a gift to humanity, and you can participate in that gift to humanity by participating in the One Nation Network program, the game of peace and enlightenment, plus all the attachments that are going to be added on to that game. So it's a phenomenal gift that was given last Christmas to humanity by Mr. Keshe. And it's up to us to sort of promote it, support it, and develop the game, even though there is a team in the background working to perfect some of the little flaws we see. And even when you buy a new car, I use that example, many times you'll get a recall. Sometimes you'll get 2 recalls or even more. It could even be later. So it's a work in progress. Give us 12 to 24 months. And of course, you can support the team on the energy level, sending those cosmic rays, as you are that magrev, you are that energy generator, so to speak. I made the man in the image of myself, or the tree. Man is no different than the tree. That was another profound, and we've heard this before in the Keshe Foundation, that we have a lot to learn from the tree. If anyone can find that experiment that Mr. Keshe referred to in this workshop, where they measured the soil in the box and so on, put it into the chat. It's on YouTube. And again, weighing the soil, they found that it was the same as after the tree grew into 50 pounds or 100 pounds or whatever it was. So how did this being sort of manifested itself? It didn't take it from the soil. It was just, again, collecting a certain isotope of carbon and using inertia to convert it into the matter state. And apparently we operate very similar way. I guess all of the creation does. But again, I'm still learning, and there's much to learn. The teaching was deep. And Ed has provided another AI sort of summary, which is about 9 minutes, which we'll play perhaps before we go into the teaching. But before we go any further, let's just ask if anyone has anything they'd like to share. Then we'll go to the World Peace Treaty, which is just reconfirming our ethos to be peaceful in that universe. And again, I continue to think that this Spaceship Institute, this spaceship, this universe is right between your 2 ears, more or less, unless you're going to fly a craft in the matter state, and then it's going to take you quite a lot of time to go anywhere in the universe. As we know, in this energy dimension, we can travel instantaneously, and this is the way the creator travels. And I made the man in the image of myself. So it's a matter of accepting it, working with it, and again, all about yourself and your creation and getting back to your creator. And as I said earlier, I think the creator is in the same position, the one we would call God or the creator of this section of the universe or whatever. He's also trying to get back to the creator. As we understand, there's levels above the level of the creator, but we're not quite ready to hear that story yet. As he said, we need to understand the C14 before we can understand more about the C6 and the C8. But we can certainly share what we think we understand about this whole process that's being revealed in such a beautiful way. So if there's no comments, we're going to go to the World Peace Treaty. Hopefully I've brought it up. And let's just make sure our video doesn't start on its own. So sometimes the AI has a way of doing that. But this is the Keshe World Peace Treaty. We do need to enlarge that a little bit. Let's see if we can do that so everyone can see. Again, it's between you and your soul. So this is not something we're collecting in a way, but this is part of the process of the foundation, is to get to that permanent peaceful condition on this planet, from the soul of this planet to all of its inhabitants. And then we can start to work with the larger family, which we refer to as the universal community. And of course, they're really not a threat or anything like that. They're here to elevate us. And this is the practice we need to, as we purify our emotions. I think this is part of this elevation where we elevate other souls rather than take away. Anyone like to read the World Peace Treaty? And this is the document the world leaders will sign, world spokespeople, I should say. And of course, the religious leaders will disembark from their frocks and other things over time. But there's a lot going on in the background as they're all fighting to declare a Messiah has come back, or a Mehdi has come back, and we'll have to see. This October is when it's supposed to appear, according to some of these writings and some of these books. So we may see 2 or 3 sort of messiahs appear on the scene. We don't know. But anyway, it's all about finding peace within yourself first and then the others. And of course, as Alex likes to say, you don't necessarily have to sign it with the pen. You can sign it with the pen of your soul. When you go out into the universe, you're never going to find anything written but the balance of the fields of the soul of the existence. Have you ever found anything written in your brain? And of course, the brain is put there because it's very close to the soul of the man, which is the central energies. And of course, this is what Da Vinci was looking for, trying to open up cadavers and find this central energy. Mr. Keshe just comes along and explains this is the soul of the man, or the central energy, which runs it. It continues to run even after it departs this matter state existence. And of course, we're at the end of the line, as I understand it, because we've appeared in the matter state. And the next step is to go back to the energy dimension and do it all over again, however we did it. But again, it's just an amazing thing to contemplate in a way, as opposed to what we hear in the heaven and hell. So this is the World Peace Treaty, again, trying to bring a balance or purity to our emotional end, which is a huge part of the creation, as the soul, I think, takes its cues from your emotions. Anyone? Okay, I'll read it. The World Peace Treaty. We, as citizens of the earth from this moment on, accept to lay down all tools of aggression and war. We shall never think about getting involved or incite war or develop or use any tools of war on this planet or in space. And to this we all agree and swear with our, and you can delete as appropriate, our nation, our territory, our council, our religion, our city, our town, our body, our souls. Simply put your name, signature, again, on behalf of. Have it witnessed, and after signing this treaty, be proud to display this certificate wherever you consider being important to you, that everyone can see and know your ethos to fellow men and the mankind and other created beauties of the Creator. It was interesting. I went to a halal service last week, and this is where they mercifully, apparently, and pray over what they slaughter and sell. And I happened to go there and I left a copy of the World Peace Treaty. And again, I didn't say much about it. The gentleman put it off to the side. He didn't throw it away or he didn't hand it back to me. So maybe they'll start to contemplate that there. But it was a very interesting experience for me, as I shared in the One Planet, One Nation, One Race. It was quite touching on the emotions, um, and so on and so forth. But it was interesting, and maybe I'll go back there again for, I have a sort of a little plan to share more about this World Peace Treaty. But again, it's an individual process more than trying to change everyone else, as I see it. You change yourself first and then the others later. And of course, the fields on this planet are being changed to accommodate such a task, let's say. The fields have not allowed us to be completely peaceful, as we cannot absorb all the energies we need under these present conditions. So the fields, through the sun, through the 3i, through other systems and other mechanisms, the fields, the soup is being adjusted that we can start to move in a more peaceful direction. And of course, this will bring us more enlightenment and obviously enter into the community of the universe, which we call the universal community. And as Mr. Keshe said, once they feel safe on this planet, that they won't be killed or destroyed, we'll collaborate with them to open up some of this knowledge. We know the ones in the UFO aren't much more advanced than mankind in a way, and they suffer for some of the same problems. But again, they're traveling in a matter state craft, so how advanced could they be? And we're learning the transmutation, so this is the way the Creator travels. So we'll open up more of this knowledge as we start to interact more with the universal community. As we heard, it's going to take more than all of us on this planet to open up this knowledge. It's so deep. And then, of course, it just continues to get deeper. Any comments? Any thoughts? Any questions? Feel free. Well, Mr. Keshe did talk a lot about the carbon and the hydrogen and how we absorb different spectrums of it and so on and so forth. This is the exact same way we create ourselves. And of course, the GANs harvest, in other words, they're growing certain products like lettuce and other things through what we would call energies of the GANs, let's say, and without using herbicides, pesticides, trying to get to an unadulterated seed. I know Mr. Keshe said he's going around the world collecting seeds and maybe eggs. I don't know if he's collecting any chickens or not, but this is all going to be part of this game of peace and enlightenment that not only can they deliver a GAN's harvest in the matter state, but this pure food, if we could call it that, seeds can be replicated and then delivered through cosmic rays. As he said, the future is cosmic ray communication. And at first I thought that Mr. Keshe was talking about communication as we speak, or we use zero time communication. But the communication he's talking about, I think, with the cosmic rays is going to be, again, the power for energy, the wellness, as we've seen in some of the videos where they've melted kidney stones from thousands of kilometers away. And of course, the travel dimension. So, and the feeding dimension, the wellness dimension, the energy dimension will all be delivered through the cosmic ray communication. It's not only for communication as I see it, but it's the way of delivering the rest of what we need. And again, I call this the new plasma city. Although it looks like a game, the energy dimension will get added in the upcoming period. As I said, we have buttons here for a quiz. We have another world quiz. We have a research center, but I think they'll add more buttons onto this for feeding. You want to be fed. You want to travel. You need energy for power and lighting. This will all come through the game. And as he said, once these cosmic rays antennas are perfected and delivered, it might be 2 to 5 years. This is, again, off in the distance a bit, or maybe closer. We will disconnect from the internet, at least on the One Nation network. And while I'm talking about the One Nation network, which I think we should talk about today, this is one of the offers here. I would imagine you get a One Nation network, but there's no real description of this. Everyone's seeing this One Nation network online training and support. So this is a 5,000 euro plus the value added tax. I would imagine you would get a One Nation network sort of computer system. And what the training and support is, I'm not sure. Anyone familiar with this? But this is appearing in the store right now. Are they going to teach you how to play the game or access things, or anyone have an idea? It's sort of very vague at this point. But this is the new Plasma Cities, and this is all part of it, and you can make a donation or you can order one for yourself. Again, you'll earn 2 cash coins per month, perhaps, in the game. And by having this unit, I think you'll earn 2 cash coins per year. But you don't need a unit to actually play the game. But as Mr. Keshe said, they're trying to get out 10,000 units. But now it's been revealed that that 10,000 units will only cover about 1 billion people. So perhaps we need to go to 70,000 or 100,000 units as every inch of this planet, and to allow access to everyone. So this will come in the time. This game is being perfected. The units are being perfected. The balance of the units will probably later in 26 or 27 as they test the first 20 or 30 units that'll be put out into the field. But this is your alternative city that you can go to for support, for wellness, for feeding, and this is envisioned to bring 1 billion people or more out of poverty. And it's not only the poverty of the physicality, it's the poverty of our minds and our thinking, which sort of needs to be tuned in a better way. Any thoughts, comments, questions?
Client asked me, do I need to buy a cash coin along with the ONN?
No, you can earn the coin in the game, but like if you were in China right now, and it's going to take a few years to earn that cash coin, you would need, if you wanted to order the food, like the lettuce and other products that'll be coming online, you're going to need a cash coin to sort of take a piece of that and order your food. But apparently it's quite pure. It's quite expensive as well. But as they say, you sometimes get what you pay for. And I think with
Well,
the
if it's pure food, you wouldn't have to.
Go
if
ahead,
it's
Randy,
pure
sorry.
food, you wouldn't have to eat much to get the energy required then.
I didn't hear the full, sorry.
If it's pure food, you
Yes.
wouldn't waste any energy trying to digest it and get the full amount of energy you need.
I'm not sure. He said to see how it changes your emotion. This is what they were looking for in this new food, or not new food, but pure food. And again, there's going to be the food delivered in the energy dimension, because he said, even though we're releasing the GAN's harvested food, we're still in the same condition of participating in the release of the soul of the entity. It's not only the one that harvests it, it's the one that eats it and the rest of it. Just like the bullet, it's not only the guy who fires the bullet, it's the guy who produces it and designs it and the rest. So eating here will touch your emotions, which I think over a longer period will bring you to that point of understanding that this is an entity and it needs to be respected. And of course, if you can feed plasmatically, then you're probably going to be around much longer, as I understand it, because this collection of souls kind of has a negative effect on us, even though we think we're doing the right thing and not even realizing what we're doing when we take another entity and consume it. But again, man likes to eat, so they're going to accommodate that for a while. But I think it'll have a long-term effect on the emotions, which will say, can I move away from this? He said they were eating the lettuce like potato chips in a way. The Chinese will be the first to receive this more, but yeah, Randy, I think you'll need a cash coin unless you can convert what you have in the game to a percentage of a cash coin and order that way. But they can't even send it, he said, until they need an export license. So I believe the product is being grown and harvested in China, so that is not needing an export license. It's internal. But to ship that product across the world will need an export license, which I think they'll be applying for. Yes, Herm, did you want to add something?
No.
But I remember when Jim and Lisa were growing lettuce using whatever, maybe Mr. Keshe probably worked with them. They were supplying it to the restaurants, and the restaurants reported back that their customers were in a rave over this lettuce, and they kept demanding, we want the kind of lettuce that you had in the restaurant before, because somehow it touched their emotions or something. But that was what Jim and Lisa had reported. And now with this, I believe they'll be using the proprietary GAN's way of doing it. Even though that's an older technology, it will still be used for a period of time. And then we can move from the chewing and digesting to more straight absorbing. Or you could do a combination of both. It'll probably take a while to switch over. So I don't think eating will stop tomorrow or next week. People like to chew, and of course, food is part of the conversation. But we're learning we can live the way the Creator lives, where the Creator, as he said, between the soul of the man and the soul of the Creator, there's no term for destruction. There's no term for destroying. And this is where we thought we were the king of the beast, so to speak, and had dominion over everything. But that is upside down and backwards. We need to respect everything, as he didn't only make the man in the image of himself, he made the entire creation in the image of himself. So this gives you an opportunity to earn something, to pass it on to your heirs. And of course, it's the biggest gift to humanity that humanity can receive as we start to bring through the cosmic ray technology 1 billion people out of poverty. Poverty of the physicality and poverty of the mind. And of course, as he said, if you've made these people's lives physically improve their lives, then you're worthy to be part of the universal community. Apparently, it's all about serving the others, not so much yourself. But we need to take care of ourselves as well. So this is the Keshe Foundation store. It will move to Shopify, I believe, but there'll be 5 digits or more products in this store. So I think you'll be able to order products physically. But as I used that example before, if you had a migraine headache, there's a product in here called the ice cap. And let's say you were leaving for Europe in 4 days. Well, the product may take a week or 2 to arrive to you. So instead of getting the physical product, which you can do, this is a different kind of mask, I think. And you can see the assortment of products from chess games to reactors to Ganses, many different things. Let's see, here's the other mask. Yeah, here it is. So let's say I need to head to Europe on an important business venture. This is a major deal for me, but I have such a debilitating headache, a migraine, that I can't even get out of bed, and I can't believe I'm in this position. So what I'm thinking, yes, you could order this physically. It may come in a week or 2 or 3, depending on where you are in the world. But I believe there'll also be a solution within the game of peace and enlightenment, as they put a wellness button here, and perhaps you'll pay with some of your coins that you've earned, and within a few hours or a few minute sessions, that migraine will get balanced out. Again, we don't cure anything or we don't heal anything. We provide balance in a way in the structure. I'm just going to grab this little piece that I see. For some reason, W's, this is the Book of Wisdom. And of course, you're trying to get your knowledge up. So there's many facets to this game and so on. I'm just going to collect this little resource. Should be ready. And there, oops, let's just see. Sometimes you have to wait a bit. Apparently I haven't. Let's just see. So there it is. Okay, so I've collected some resources. They call it secret rolls, and I've collected some cash coins, they call it. 8cc, which is 10 to the, is it minus 18 power? So that's so tiny I couldn't see it. But anyway, it accumulates, as you can see. We have some, and you can listen to the thing on the wiki. I don't know what happened here. I guess that's in Rwanda. I should have expanded the screen. I do want that W. All right, I must wait until that's fulfilled. So this is the game of Peace and Enlightenment. You can download the US version or the world version. Just change the word US to world. And let me put this in the chat. I'll copy this. And again, there's a bit more to it. You have to sort of get cleared for this game by getting an email and so on. Let's put this in the chat. Any comments on the game other than some of the features aren't fully working or fully developed? But this is the US game. And if you want to go on the world game, and I don't think there's any limitation whether you choose to play on the world, the US, or whatever. Maybe we'll see some changes in going on in the future. So I'll just say US game. And there it is. So you can go there and you can sign up for the game. And again, this will bring people out of poverty as more and more of the features are added through the cosmic rays. And this is what he said, the development is all about the cosmic ray communication. Communication for power, communication for wellness, communication for feeding, and communication for traveling, and just plain communication, perhaps. As we saw, the cosmic ray communication bundles were released as well by the Keshe Foundation. So some of these devices, I'm thinking, like the Twinity unit, will actually start to activate perhaps as the energy dimension comes into this game. And that's how everyone can benefit by the new Plasma City. And as you see, the features get added onto it more and more. But it's probably better if Mr. Keshe explains it. Let's go to the announcements. And as he said, he's taken some of his time from other projects to make sure this is sort of completed in a more timely manner. So continue to elevate those through your cosmic rays and emotions, those working in the background on the game and helping to develop it, because it's for all of us. And this will be amazing that if I meet somebody in Africa or another country, I would have perhaps a friend there that you can start dialoguing with. And if you wanted to travel there, maybe you can travel through the game at some point in time, or through that energy dimension. I think this is all going to be possible in the game. And maybe I'm far reaching at this point, but I think this is what some of the attachments will be in this game, that it's going to expand tremendously. And it'll just be like the city you have now, except it's going to be in the energy dimension more than in the physical dimension. Of course, we have research centers, which you can contribute to as well. Now, if you're going to get into this game, one of the other requests by the Keshe Foundation is to join our club or our association. And I'm going to put this in the chat, Keshe Keshe Foundation .at for Austria. And this is a link where you can join the club or join the association, which gives you other privileges within this game. And I'm thinking specifically the marketplace. It will allow people to trade things or exchange things without the normal formalities, I think, because you're in an association. I could be off on this, but it does have some benefits, and that's why they're asking you to join Keshe Foundation.at. You can try that and sign up for $1 a year or $1 a month or €1 a year, euro a month. But this is the biggest gift Mr. Keshe said he could give humanity was this game. All right, let's go to the announcements if we can. Any comments? Any thoughts? Anyone not playing the game? Anyone playing the game? All right, let's see where we are here.
I think there are a few of us playing the game.
Yes, yes. I think we have 31 on ours, so you can see it's just in its infancy. And you have on the world game 500 or 600, 400? 600?
Right now we have we have 404
Good.
on at the moment. I
Good.
mean, we have a total of 404 and 38 are playing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I think a number of people didn't quite get in because they have some trouble resetting it up. We had a beta version, and now this is the official version, even though it needs some polishing. But I think people are stuck. I know one individual that's stuck, can't seem to log in or something. Again, I don't know what's happening with these computers. And normally, I think it's not the arrow, but it's the Indian sometimes. We like to blame the game or blame something else, but sometimes it's our own lack of understanding of how to run these computers. As I said, I thought I was clever by getting more unconnected. That was my expression I used to use a lot. They said, "You want to sign up for that?" No, I'm trying. Tell me how to get more unconnected. That's what I'm trying to do. But now I see that could be a disadvantage for me as I don't know how to run these computers, which in the long run I think is good. But we're going to add a different flavor as we start to add the emotion and the brain cell into this AI sort of system, which will be part of this game as well. All of the teachings will be in there and many of the other things. And once the antenna gets developed, you can start embedding those teachings within the soul of the man, as I understand it. So you'll have a zero-time communication with this game of peace and enlightenment that you can start to access what you want, not by looking it up on the internet, but by asking the question within your own creation and looking for the answer through the energy dimension. So this game will have a soul in it that can help and touch all of us in a way. And I certainly think he's going to use as a real dream this idea of transmutation to go to different places, perhaps starting that way and then moving into the position where you can perhaps walk out of that energy dimension into the physicality, but maybe not. As he said, the transmutation is not for you moving from one place to another, but it's to transmute you to find your own creator, which came to your creation, which resides right within you. Which again, as Christians, we were all taught God was somewhere way out there and needing an intermediary to reach. But now we understand it's right within our own structure, as it's within every other structure, from a grain of sand to the soul of the creator, I suppose.
Turning people away.
Any thoughts? Any comments? It is a profound, deep knowledge, and it's just at the beginning. So it's step by step, slowly, but we're all progressing into a deeper understanding of who we are in the universe and what our role is in functioning the expansion of the creator's fields. That's it. At this point, and of course, as we all know, our understanding, the more we delve into this, the more our understanding changes, and it does create a lot of issues within our own thoughts because we've been taught wrong, and from science to medicine to agriculture and to the whole process of creation. As he said, the prophets were ignorant to the process of the creation. And now we've been blessed with a slight understanding of how energy is actually manifested in the matter state. So feel privileged and humbled at the same time that somehow we're here to learn this, only to share it with the others more. So let's go to the announcements. I'm not sure where they are. What I'm going to do is just move this screen. Okay, so we're going to go to about 58 minutes. There are only 4 minutes of announcements or news this week, let's say. Just trying to get there. I'm going to just back it up about 8 seconds before this. Let's see where we land.
I have a few things to say, and please go ahead, Mr. Keshe.
Thank you very much. Couple of notes. We try to run the session for addiction tomorrow. We could not reach the system, what we call development, we are waiting for. But either way, through the new developments, this will be done tomorrow. We start at 10 o'clock Central European time, and it will be just a couple of hours. And then we need your feedback, those of you who participate.
Was anyone in that session that would like to share anything? Please feel free. And what are we talking about? If you go to the Keshe Foundation store, it seems every month or two, or sometimes twice a month, we have a session where we can help keep the Keshe Foundation free for development, that they don't have to go outside and look for funds to develop. And this was always, let's just go to all products. And again, as I said, this store will disappear shortly as it's going to get moved into Shopify. But this is the cosmic ray transmission. So every month there's normally a session. And as of late, and I haven't been in that session where they're starting to use this game of peace and enlightenment, I guess they're testing how some of these fields can be actually moved through the game. So he talked about signing up for this game and being part of this game before you participate in these sessions. So this is once a month. It's €500 plus the value added tax, or sometimes they'll offer a package of 3 months and you can get a maybe €150 discount on that. So $13.50. But again, it's a bigger work of keeping the foundation free. You can gift this to someone, or you could take advantage of this offer yourself. But the main point is keeping the foundation free to develop without constraints of governments or other organizations who would then dictate the research and what's to go or what's to be released and so on. So you're privileged to be able to do that, as I see, either participate or help with this process. Okay, let us go back to the So let's go back and hear the rest of the announcements as we look at the beautiful transcript. And of course, we thank those who've developed this transcript. Just maybe a year ago or more, it was very difficult to try and transcribe everything that Mr. Keshe had talked about and put it all together. It was quite a daunting task, but now with the AI, I think they're using Whisper. This is appearing within hours or less than a day of the delivery. So it's a beautiful transcript. We thank those all over the world who are using this and developing this. And of course, it's a great reference. As he said, they're going to be opening these teachings for centuries into the future. There's much hidden in there. We haven't really fully seen it all. Let's continue on the announcements. And of course, feel free to stop it at any time or interject, all up to you.
The May session of the KAKT transmutation, we try to delay it a little bit more till the system is ready sometime later on in May. But we want to do that, especially with a new system that nobody interrupts each other. Those of you who come in for the addiction tomorrow, please bring with yourself for what we call 2 headphones with 4 head covers, and as usual we tell you what to do because you know you've been there before, and keep as quiet as possible.
And when you sign up for these sessions, normally the night before or hours before the session starts, you'll receive an email with some more detailed instructions of what to gather and what to be ready for in the session. And then sometimes Mr. Keshe will announce certain things in the beginning of the session, and it just goes forward. Anyone was in the last session want to share anything about that? Please feel free. If not, no problem.
I was informed yesterday that our team would like to delay the presentation of the products till next week, where they have their videos and everything else complete done, even though they have their pictures and everything ready, their website.
And again, this is the GANs harvesting, so this was the second week that proposal was delayed, only probably because of the pictures and the way they want to present it. I think the product is there. They're not waiting for product to come in, but they just want to have as most beautiful presentation as they can when this is presented overall. Any thoughts on this? But this is called the GANs harvest, where they're grown without pesticides, without fertilizers and the rest. More energy input, but pure energy. And of course, that's going to get to the point, if they grow this way, that there's no pollution or nitrogen running off the soils and getting into the rivers and the other things. And he talked about developing a sort of a fertilization system through the energies that one system can accommodate the celery or the potato or the eggplant, let's say, or the watermelon, whatever. One system that will allow energies to be taken based on, again, that isotope they're looking for. So another phenomenal development where you won't put GANs on the plants and you probably won't water them too much, but you'll just make the isotopes of energies that the different plants, vertical people are looking for, and they'll all be able to absorb from one system. That's what it sounds like to me. Anyone else? You won't need multiple fertilizers or different fertilizers for different plants. The one system will have everything and provide everything, and those plants will target that certain carbon isotopes that they need. So it's just amazing. Again, he shows us what he does or what the foundation does. He doesn't always tell us how to do it, although he does encourage you to try and test and learn more. But as you can see, this is so far advanced. I'm going to take up the offers of the Keshe Foundation. As he said, try to use the systems we developed, if you can. But you're fully well to develop your own systems and play that way as well. Or do both. Develop your own systems while at the same time using the foundation system. But this is where you'll find the certification and the logo and everything else. As he said, there's a new logo coming out as well. And this will be a symbol that you can believe in and that you can trust in. As he said many times with this bio or this organic food, you don't know where it came from, or did they just put it in the bag that says bio or organic? So that's hard to determine. But with the Keshe Foundation products, it's a label that you can trust and that you can believe in. And this will extend to many things. As he said, the products that the Keshe Foundation releases are tested first with Mr. Keshe, and then they're released and tested with the others, and then it goes into the public domain. But it's done the right way and the correct way. As he said, knowledge seekers don't have a deep understanding. We've given you the GANs, but you don't know how to use them. And of course, he said very similar things about the cosmic rays and the C14, and we need to understand more about C14 before we can go too much deeper into the C6 and the C8. Okay.
they see it always is appropriate to be done in a full first-time delivery. Next week, hopefully, you will see part of the structure of the Keshe Foundation, where and how we invest into creating the pure seeds, pure structures, and pure waters that can allow us to structure what we call the transportation of the future.
So imagine if you could get pure water through the fields into your body. We know our bodies can do it. We see that when you have pneumonia, how the lungs fill up with water. So the body has that ability, and maybe through these fields you can start to bring some very pure water and purer energies into your own structure. Pure structures, pure waters, and pure seeds. So there'll be a matter state aspect to this as I see it. And then if you don't want to get the squash delivered to you that way as a item of physicality, you can have squash or something else or a salad through the cosmic rays. And again, that's hard to fathom. I could never believe you could feed yourself without eating. But apparently this is what the foundation is showing. You saw the mining of the gold without going into the ground, didn't you? So it's a very similar procedure.
Those of you who work with us around the Keshe Foundation framework of support, we still need a lot of help. If you're expert in any dimension, we would like to know. As I said, we're receiving a lot of offers. Those of you who we know can help us to stage further the whole process, we'll get in touch with. Those of you who keep on sending us emails, you've done this and that. If we don't respond to you, as I said before, we already passed the knowledge you're trying to tell us. You're still playing with infancy, even though you think you're on the edge of the science. So if you don't get any reply from us, especially who offer us scientific, what we call data or systems, it means we passed your system. And your understanding might be good, but it doesn't mean you're wrong. But compared to where the Keshe Foundation is, your work is literally nominal. Even though it's groups of you, there are a few groups around the world who have gathered together in different parts of the world. There's some in East Asia, there's some in Central Asia, there's some in Europe. We have groups in America. And we see a lot of your work coming in, and you think you've done, you're very advanced. You're actually, even the most advanced one I was looking at, you're something 10 years behind us.
So as he likes to indicate, we only put into the public domain about 5% of what the Keshe Foundation is doing. So even though people think they're quite advanced, apparently Mr. Keshe said that they've gone past it. It's got to be the cosmic ray communication type of things that they're working on. But of course, don't limit yourself to stopping with a nano-coated wire and the rest. It's a beautiful knowledge, and you can do many of these things on your kitchen table, or approximate it, let's say. You may not be able to deliver, as we saw with the magravs and the other things.
There are groups in different parts of the world, and they think they gone very far, but it's beautiful what you do. But what you're doing in these groups or individuals, you're quite a bit behind what Keshe Foundation is. And it's not good for us.
And I think he's being very soft there. In other words, being quite gentle without trying to. Again, it's been an issue. I've tried a few of these things to develop, like the self-charging flashlight, but I'm just not getting it. And I'm sure it's as easy to do if I knew what to do, or I could copy, as he said with the cup of life. You just said it the way I said it, but yet he's again showing us what he's doing, but not telling us exactly at this point. It's probably the level of maturity. When I mature more, I may get more understanding in this knowledge as humanity as a whole, let's say, because otherwise I think it's open to abuse, and he needs to protect the knowledge. That's why he shows what he does, but he doesn't tell how it's done. Although with the Cup of Life 1 and 2, it was shown. And when we said it exactly the way Mr. Keshe said it, voila, beautiful results.
So to go backwards, maybe it helps us somewhere down the line. But at this moment, what we set up, what we're doing, we're looking to go forward. We have to bring the knowledge in a very big operation as it's taking shape gradually. And those of you who work with us and you've been with us know exactly how we're going, where we're going, and the systems development and everything else which is going on. If there are any questions, we'll try to answer, and we'll see where we go.
Okay, so you can write to info@keshe.foundation if you're an artisan, a specialist, a computer person, you'd like to help promote peace for humanity and unite us with the larger family. Even though we're already part of it, we're kind of put out in the garage, let's say, until we learn a better behavior. But feel free with your ideas, even if you're a developer, manufacturer of a certain product, and you'd like to perhaps add an aspect which would make you quite different than the other products that are being sold of the Keshe technology, right? And share your ideas with the foundation if you could. And sometimes, as he said, if we don't get back to you, maybe it doesn't fit at the time, but don't be discouraged. I think it's all being collected, and maybe in the future your idea will fit more than it does today. But we can certainly support through the store in other ways. But yeah, there's going to be many, many opportunities for many people in this without working too hard at it, as I see it. As he said, all man needs to do is travel the universe, gather knowledge, and become that drop of water, carrying the totality. Okay. No thoughts? No comments? Anyone? Ed, as I said, delivered us a sort of a summary through the AI of the what was in this workshop, the 640. So maybe we can just give a general overview. It's quite deep, and again, Mr. Keshe said, don't ask the AI; it doesn't have a soul to explain these teachings. But it gave a much nicer summary than I could put together. Again, the workshop was 3 hours. The teaching was less than an hour, but the AI has put this together. And let's just see if we can find that. I must have, here it is. Okay, and we're just gonna, we were looking at this a bit earlier. It's 9 minutes and so on. Feel free to stop it, I suppose, or we could watch the entire. Okay, let's just see. This was, again, the summary done by Ed with the Notebook LM about the last workshop. Anyone, comments, questions, something you'd like to share? And it is quite deep. You'll see there's quite a bit to it, and this is trying to unravel it in 9 minutes, which is an impossibility. But it does, it's a very nice presentation. And again, it does seem, as the AI said, a bit far out there. But this is what this technology will do. Man is going to become dizzy with some of these systems that are going to be released by the Keshe Foundation. Just the one we showed from last May. That's just amazing. And of course, it was confirmed by the Chinese scientists in the top levels of the Chinese military multiple times, not only in that event, in other places. As he said, they were in the mountains of a gold mine, and they've done this with copper. So the Chinese have worked a little bit more than some of the other nations with the Keshe Foundation, and so on and so forth. So let's just look at this. We want to thank Ed for the creation. Feel free to share it. This is not anything exclusive. And of course, let's do that now. I'm going to copy this, and I'll put this in the chat as well. And this will connect you to Ed's unmonetized workshop. Let's see. I'll just put AI summary of 640. That should cover it. Okay, so let's hear this beautiful creation that Ed did. Again, it's not including everything. It's just almost an impossible, even the AI, but it's only concentrating on one workshop at a time. With this, it's not asking it to go over the entire totality of what's been taught and as it relates to this particular teaching.
Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking something, well, honestly, it's pretty mind-bending. We're looking at a deeply abstract piece of source material that somehow weaves physics, biology, and some heavy metaphysics into a unified theory of everything. Let me tell you, it is a wild ride, and I am so excited to break it all down for you. Okay, let's dive into this. Imagine if every single breath you took was a direct physical connection to the cosmos. That's where this theory kicks off. It takes something we do all day, every day, breathing, and connects it to the vast, invisible forces of universal creation. It's basically asking us to see the invisible elements around us not just as dead building blocks of matter, but as actual, literal lines of communication for the soul. So to make sense of this massive theory, we've broken the explainer down into 6 parts: 2 tenets, 1 body, the tree analogy, breathing and dreaming, emotion and the soul, the blueprint of creation, and finally, future knowledge and evolution. Don't worry, it'll all flow logically as we go. All right, Section 1, 2 tenets, 1 body, or the dual nature of human existence. The framework kicks off with this idea of a fundamental duality. According to the source, we're basically living a double life. We've got a physical body and we've got a soul. But here's the kicker. They're fed by totally different energy sources. Our sun, the text describes it as just an amplifier. It feeds our physical bodies, sure, but it actually doesn't have the juice, the field strength, required to feed the soul. So the crucial point is that our soul is sustained by much higher frequency cosmic rays coming directly from the wider universe. The text literally describes us as having 2 tenets sharing the exact same physical space. So, how do these 2 tenets interact? Well, the framework assigns very specific jobs to basic elements. Hydrogen is named as the line of physical connection, like the spark of life itself. Carbon, though? Carbon is the line of communication between our physical state and our spiritual state. As you're going to see, carbon is absolutely the star of this metaphysical show. Which brings us right to Section 2, the tree analogy, or the mechanism of physical manifestation. To explain how this invisible cosmic energy actually turns into hard physical matter, the text uses a really fascinating biological analogy. Think about a leaf. Instead of standard high school photosynthesis, plants are described here as highly advanced nanoconverters. The idea is that the 2 sides of a leaf act as nanomaterial filters, generating their own magnetic fields. These fields act like invisible nets, fishing the air for very specific isotopes of CO2. And then, based on how light and water are compressed, that invisible absorbed energy dictates whether it physically turns into a thick oak trunk, a little stem, or a soft green leaf. To back up this idea that matter comes from absorbed energy and not the dirt, the text points to a specific experiment. Picture this. A tiny plant is put into exactly 1 single kilo of soil. Over years, it grows into a massive tree weighing 100 kilos. But, and here's the crucial part, the weight of the soil stayed exactly the same. It's used as proof for the argument that the physical bulk of the tree is built entirely from the carbon it pulled right out of thin air. Let's move to boron and see how this builds into human physiology in Section 3, breathing and dreaming. The text enthusiastically argues that we are absolutely no different from those trees. You and I, we're continuous carbon absorbers. We are constantly breathing in CO2 to maintain our physical and spiritual links. And we're exchanging this energy everywhere. It could be intimately, like through kissing, or just sitting in a crowded train cabin breathing the same air as 100 other commuters. We're constantly pulling in the carbon energies we need to survive. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the text categorizes these carbon isotopes into this almost hierarchy of consciousness. Carbon-12 is linked to our normal waking state. It flows in our blood and essentially acts as a shackle, keeping us locked into the physical world. But at night, when our blood pressure drops, the framework claims we start absorbing higher isotopes, specifically carbon-14 and 16. This essentially picks the lock on those shackles, letting the soul connect to the wider cosmos, which we experience as dreaming. And at the very top, there's a theoretical state, carbon-6. This represents absolute, ultimate purity of the soul and a direct closeness to the Creator. So, how do you actually reach those higher isotopes? That's what Section 4 gets into, emotion and the soul. Because apparently, your physical lungs aren't the only filters. First up, we need to talk about inertia, but not the physics definition you might be used to. Here, inertia refers to the specific local gravitational and magnetic energy of a geographic spot on Earth. This local energy apparently dictates exactly how carbon is converted. According to the text, this explains why people in different parts of the world have different physical traits like height, or even different behavioral tendencies, ranging from aggressive behavior to deep, deep serenity. Layered right on top of that geographic inertia is human emotion. The text describes a sort of moral physics at play. Basically, your emotions act as the filter dictating what level of carbon energy you absorb. If you act wrongly, you create these heavy attachments to the physical plane, trapping your soul in that heavy carbon. On the flip side, purifying your emotions lets you absorb that highly elusive carbon-6, effectively bridging the gap between you and the Creator. All right, let's zoom way out for Section 5, the blueprint of creation, where these rules are applied to the entire universe. The source material argues that universal design is actually stunningly simple, because hydrogen and carbon, remember, the physical spark and the communication line, because they exist literally everywhere, the text boldly asserts that life is totally universal. This specific elemental interaction means life absolutely exists all over the cosmos. It even explicitly mentions life on Mars and the Moon. And this brilliantly illustrates a deeply unifying view of humanity presented in the text. Despite all our physical differences, which, remember, the framework just attributes to those different field spectrums and local inertias we talked about, we all share a single common denominator. The text traces this shared origin point of all human creation directly back to Africa, emphasizing that, at our absolute core, every single one of us carries the exact same potential. So, where is this metaphysical journey taking us? Let's wrap up with Section 6, Future Knowledge and Evolution. The framework predicts an absolutely astonishing evolutionary leap once we master this knowledge. The idea is that by consciously controlling our breath, humans could supposedly manage the CO2 in our lungs to trigger actual physical transmutation. Just imagine a future where people can produce gold or generate nuclear energy as easily as a waterfall makes water. And because creating matter would become so incredibly easy, the text suggests humanity would completely abandon the greed of matter and shift our entire focus onto the purity of emotion. Furthermore, this profound scientific understanding of our own carbon and soul connection would fundamentally rewire society. The text claims that once humanity truly understands this universal blueprint, physical religious structures like churches and mosques will become totally unnecessary. The logic is that every single person will inherently understand their own direct, internal path to creation. Which leaves us with a truly profound concept to ponder from this wild framework. If this vision actually comes to pass, and humanity masters the physical plane to the point where we totally outgrow material greed, what limits could possibly remain for the purity and potential of human emotion? It's a fascinating question from a really unconventional explainer. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next one.
So quite a few profound concepts in that short summary. Perhaps we'll spend 10 or 15 minutes in the workshop itself and let the professor explain more.
That's a pretty good YouTube to send to someone who is asking about the foundation and what they do, and is easily explained in simple English.
Yeah.
And if they want to learn further, they can go. So hats off to Ed for doing a fantastic job on that.
Mm-hmm. And of course, he picked that up from the Vietnamese knowledge seekers, apparently, where he saw one of the videos. He hasn't been able to reach that specific knowledge seeker, but he started to investigate this Google Notebook LM, apparently, and there's a number of different settings, but he's worked with it and quite successfully, I would say. A much better summary than I could do. Any other thoughts? And these, I think, will be continued to be created. So again, you can open up a new dimension by sharing these simple videos with one another. It's just amazing how Mr. Keshe has always said, we're chameleons. We have a matter state dimension and we have an energy state dimension, but the energy has been a mystery to us. And that's why he said it will open the mystery of the matter state of the entity to its energies. So we're shifting to this science to energy because we look at the gold, but where did the gold come from? It came from energies, just like every other thing we so admire in the matter state. So this is the way science is being sort of pushed or maneuvered in this way to get more in tune and understanding of the energy first, and the matter comes later. But we're so enamored with the matter, we forgot the energy. But we're going back to it. So, and of course, as I said, we're created, now we're in the matter state. We're at the end of the line, so to speak. The next step is to go back into the energy dimension when the soul separates from the physicality and do it all over again. So thank you, Ed, for that creation, many more. And we support your work. Maybe we'll go back to, I think it starts at 12:30. So let's hear about 10 minutes of this, or 20 minutes, depending. Any other comments about what is being shared here? No problem. Let's go right into it. I'll bring the transcript into view.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 640th Knowledge Seekers Workshop here on Thursday, April 30th, 2026. This is a broadcast of the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute Education Department and part of the Public Teachings in English. My name's Rick Kremen, and I'll be host once again in this weekly series of workshops ongoing for well over a decade now. And once again, we have Mr. Mayran Keshe here as our main presenter and teacher, and I believe he's ready, willing, and able to present today and is ready to go. Please go ahead, Mr. Keshe.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Good day to you, as usual, wherever and whenever you listen to a series of knowledge seekers from Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute. We go back to what and where we started and bring in effects which has been in front of us and we all have been aware of, and we have seen, we observe on a daily basis as part of our physicality, but we deny its existence through conformation of a soul. What does this mean? We consider our physical body, but we, as we spoke before, we come from the rays of the universe. We don't come only from the rays of the sun. Rays of the sun is one of the participants in the construction of the physicality of the man. What comes in the dimension of the matter, connection, conversion, becomes our physicality. which is the dimension of partial the fields of the what we call our solar system, rays of our sun. And the other, which makes our soul, comes from the dimension of the universe. Our sun cannot produce that much to and make connection with our soul, because our soul receives energies above what is within the limitation of the resources of the physical conversion. In a way, our sun is an amplifier of its own fields, but does not work at the strength of the cosmic rays. So the sun feeds our physicality, and the cosmic rays from the source feed our soul.
Any comments on that? So the sun, I know, Gail, you were talking about protecting the sun earlier. I guess it was going down or getting ready for sunset. The sun is part of addressing our physicality. It doesn't have, gee, and I thought he did say the sun released cosmic rays, but anyway, the soul gets nurtured through the universal fields. And where is that converter? We talk about these cosmic rays, and Mr. Keshe talked about the thyroid gland is in the neck is one of the main converters of the cosmic rays, which feeds the soul. Even though our skin is absorbing, but not at that level, apparently. The sun cannot feed the soul. So just another interesting point. Any comments? So not only do we have a chameleon type of personality, but that chameleon is fed from two different sources, as I see it. Cosmic rays from the universe, unicos, and of course the rays from the sun.
So we live a two life. We have two tenants in the same physicality. One is our soul and one is our spirit, or what we call emotion of the man. But how do they come together? We have denied, we have not understood, or partially we understood the process. And we are on a path to understand more about ourselves, more about our creation, more in how we are connecting the two together without knowing. The line of connection is the hydrogen. The line of communication is carbon. And it gives us the physicality. And this is the beauty of it, how it hides within the same structure. How we change energy into gases, and then how we change the gases into matter is understood by man partially, but how it was absorbed never understood. With nanotechnology we introduced, as I said, if you've been in my lectures around the world, I usually look for a leaf, and I explain to you with the leaf of a plant, if you look at one side of the plant leaf and then the other side, the back of it, there are two different colors, there are two different filters, but these are nanomaterials, create their own magnetic fields. And what is the balance between the two is what carbon the plant absorbs from the atmosphere. All the CO2s are not the same. The CO2s are different. The CO2s are a spectrum of difference, and the gap between the two leaves, two green parts, decides which isotope of CO2 I'm going to absorb and what it is and how it is. This is how the woods, the human body is created. When we have a leaf on a tree at night, when the CO2 is passing, which is huge concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere of the earth, the plant decides which fish I'm going to catch. That fish is what I am, what I like to eat. It's like you put a cow, the deer, the donkey, and let's say giraffe in the same fields. Each one eats certain part of the grass. The other one all eat the same, and they leave something for the next one. And this is the way the fields of the atmosphere of the earth works.
So it's almost like a huge buffet of fields, and each entity takes whatever isotopes they're looking for, whatever fish they'd like to catch, as an example.
And
we're doing all of this without us really being aware of it, are we? Anyone realize that your thyroid is converting the cosmic rays into energy for the soul? Not until it was explained a bit more.
due to inertia, due to gravity, due to everything else, these isotopes of CO2 are like layers on top of each other. It's like when you put oil and water, they're separated. This is why we only see certain type of trees on top of the mountains, and then we'll see a tree line on the top. There is no more vegetation because we don't have vegetations which can work on that level of higher strength carbon CO2 level.
And of course, he showed us, just using the simple box, if I could, how you get to this carbon-6 in a way. So we have a zinc plate, and we say what? The zinc is 65. And then we have the nano-coated copper, which is 59, right? And the difference, this is the leaf. This is one side of the leaf, this is the other side of the leaf, and the difference, or the gap, is what they create, which is 6. And this is the carbon. Yeah? So he's showing us and gave examples just in the CO2 box of how the leaf is working. This is, let's just erase these if we can. Any comments? So you can do it and collect that C6 right in your CO2 box. But as he said later on, we have the ganses, but we haven't really understood how to use them, which will be explained more in the future. Okay, here we go.
As we come down, we come to the rivers, we come to the what we call oceans. We see the change in the CO2 absorption and conversion. We see plants in the water. In the depth of the oceans, we find greens. There's still a CO2 in there, but the compression changes. Compression decides. Compression of the water decides. Compression of the light decides what is absorbed by the plant to be there for life to exist. What we call a leaf, a body of the man, is the compression converter. What does this mean? It compresses the energy fields, what it needs, and then it transfers it through into what we call the matter state as it needs it, the way it needs it.
And remember, this is your creation, and how come it's so beautifully created? Because it was set by the Creator. We've just never understood what the Creator actually set within us. I made the man in the image of myself. So your MagRav, your whole system was perfectly set up by the Creator.
It needs a wood for the trunk, it needs the thinner stem for the leaf, and it needs the thinner CO2 for the green and what it reflects. And why does it reflect the green? There's a test done by scientists decades ago where he actually took a plant of 1 kilo or a few kilos, very little, put a square meter of a soil, and he measured the soil and the plant. And then he converted this, let it grow for 5 years, 10 years. The plant became a tree, about, let's say, 100 kilo. He measured it, and the soil was exactly the same as when he started 10 years ago. So the soil does not convert into the tree. The only thing which becomes the trunk of that tree is the CO2 which the tree absorbs.
Okay, if anyone can find that experiment on YouTube, it's there. I saw it a few weeks ago. I don't know how I ran into it, but I did run into it. And I don't know if it was in the late 1800s or the 1900s or what, but that experiment is laid out on YouTube. Maybe somebody can find it. If not, I'll find it and then put it in the chat, and that will sort of dovetail with this teaching. Maybe it's the same one Mr. Keshe saw or looked at. I'm not sure. Or maybe it was already well known.
Excuse me, Mr. Keshe, is there a drawing that we should be seeing?
Yes.
We see a line.
Yes. Yes. Give me time.
Okay.
The plant absorbs the CO2. And according to the, what do you call the CO2 spectrum, becomes the trunk of the tree. That's why you have oak. That's why you have pine. That's why you have the stem of a bush. Because of what CO2 is absorbed, it becomes the construction of that plant. In a way, what is sent, what is released by the sun to convert into carbon becomes the embodiment of the physicality. So if we look into the dimension of a plant as a leaf, the CO2 comes in. They tell us it synthesizes and it becomes the trunk of a tree, what do you call it, chlorophyll and everything else which it becomes, and then it becomes into a matter state of it. It becomes the, what we call those little strings we see. But this CO2 going in, O2 gets absorbed and released into atmosphere because the trees give us. The carbon becomes the trunk of the tree. When we weighed the tree and it became 100 kilos from 1 or 2 kilos and nothing changed in the soil weight, then where does the weight of the tree comes from? And if you get a tree trunk and you burn it, what are you left with? Charcoal, carbon.
So the plant takes in the CO2 gases, I understand, and then converts the carbon but releases the oxygen. So it breaks off the carbon, it becomes, adds inertia, becomes part of its physicality, and releases the oxygen. Isn't that what we've always heard, that the plants take in CO2 but they release oxygen? So this is the exact process of growing itself as I see it. Any comments? And again, that's just amazing that with the inertia, it can actually produce a physicality out of a gas.
So we understand that the CO2 with the inertia of the earth becomes the embodiment of the carbon-12, which becomes the, what we call the embodiment, the physicality of the tree. That's where you burn your wood from. It's the CO2 which you captured, which the plant captured according to its leaf construction. The nanolayers onto the two sides. Now, our body is the same. They tell us we breathe air. We breathe the same air as the tree does. Why do we sleep at night better than daytime? Because our lung capacity changes into absorbing CO2, but our body has learned to absorb CO2 24 hours a day. But certain CO2s, which takes us to convert the carbon-12 into carbon-14 and 16 to become part of the cosmic ray, is released. Now you understand why you're connected to your sleep and your dream. The same way as a leaf absorbs the CO2 and then changes, releases oxygen, the carbon becomes the trunk of the tree, and the air we breathe in does the same thing. Part of that, it's not all O2 and nitrogen. This is all made simple for people to understand. The science of composition is the same as the tree. Still, we absorb a lot of CO2s. We kiss each other. In the process of kissing, what do? We transfer CO2 to each other. Your CO2 is not my CO2. I take what I like from it. We sleep next to each other. We breathe over each other. We get 100 of us into one train cabin and we all breathe each other's CO2. But none of us dies because our body 24 hours a day takes the CO2 which fits us to keep the combination, the connection. Even when in the leaf, the liquid which goes in the what we call embodiment of the tree is sap. And the body of the man, the blood and the lymph is exactly the same process. But as part of that CO2 which we absorb as a carbon, we have at certain strengths attract, bring in combination, connection that allows carbon-16 and carbon-14 and the other carbon connection with the different dimensions of the universe to connect to us. This is the reason we dream at night, because we allow not only the blood pressure to reduce, not only the CO2 combination in our blood changes, allows the C carbon 14 and 16 to reach our soul, connect to the universe. This is why our breathing dictates our dreaming state. Our breathing dictates the entanglement, the shackles on our soul with our brain. This is why when our blood circulation stops, what we call the soul is released, because it's not just that calcium of the skull, is the blood flow which carries the carbon 12 in the dimension of physicality of the man, which is the shackles on our soul. This is why when you cut a head, the soul is released, because carbon 14, which supports with the calcium to contain the body of the man, the soul of the man, all is gone. Even though when our blood pressure reduces, then we dream a lot. Oh, I feel lightheaded and I was dreaming. Now you understand, our condition, our physicality is connected to the carbon, which is the connector between the structure of the physicality of the man, and then is a connector and connector to the soul of the man and what we call the cosmic rays. What dictates into what we absorb of the carbon of the atmosphere of this planet is the inertia of the carbon, not the carbon itself. What it has as inertia, what it creates inertia in the dimension of floating within the structure, dictates the gravitational magnetic field of the carbon 14 and 16, which our soul absorbs, into what level we connect. And the more purified this becomes, this carbon 14, and the more purified becomes the carbon 12, the deeper, the higher field strength and narrow bandwidth we get to become closer to the Creator.
So he said we don't absorb the carbon, we absorb the inertia of the carbon. Anyone want to explain that? Okay, no problem. I can't. I'm looking for more.
And
Yeah,
how
if you can play it again, I think that maybe inertia becomes a condition.
Okay, let me play it and let's see the full. We'll go back in the atmosphere. planet is the inertia of the carbon, not the carbon itself. Okay, so that's back around 28. So let me just go back 1 minute. Thank you, Ike. Okay, here we go.
Carbon, which is the connect.
I'll go back a bit more. Here we go.
Our condition, our physicality is connected to the carbon, which is the connector between the structure of the physicality of the man, and then is a connector and connector to the soul of the man and what we call the cosmic rays. What dictates into what we absorb of the carbon of the atmosphere of this planet is the inertia of the carbon, not the carbon itself.
Any comments?
I'd like to jump in.
Go right ahead.
So we understand that the plasma fire extinguisher works very differently from normal carbon. You understand that carbon dioxide is an essential gas inside greenhouses. It really promotes the growth of the plants. But the carbon dioxide is heavier than air, so it would rest at the bottom by the ground level. So if you were, say, to lay down in a greenhouse and maybe fall asleep, if the concentration of the carbon dioxide is increased significantly, you might suffocate. Whereas with the Keshe extinguishers, if we create a carbon dioxide perimeter around the forest fire, you would find that any living organism within the fire who's surviving the fire, while the carbon dioxide is extinguishing the flame, will survive. And so there's an anomaly here where carbon dioxide in one form is suffocating, carbon dioxide in another form is life-giving.
Absolutely.
And the way we were taught is that we breathe in oxygen and we breathe out carbon dioxide. But at some point in time, we have the carbon dioxide in our lungs, and I've often wondered how come we're not suffocating within there. So the reason for it is because it's still carbon dioxide, but it is not the same thing. One is in the plasma state and one is in the physical state.
That's the ticket, yeah. The plasmatic one brings life, as was spoken of, and the other one destroys life, the matter state, CO2.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts? Okay, thank you, Alex. Let's continue for a few more minutes here.
Mark, I have a question.
Please, more the better. Thank you, folks.
Yeah, okay. Do you know what oxygen is?
No.
You talked about this carbon in inertia state, but what happens in the alveoli of the lungs? What happens when you sleep? The pressure of the lungs goes down, and even by inhaling, your pressure increases just a little bit. Then the energy is transferred to the bloodstream, not the oxygen, the energy. So what happens is the helium flows as an energy form to the carbon of the in the bloodstream, releasing the helium. What is it, helium? It's two, what did I say? Two hydrogen and two neutrinos. So the neutron part is the part of the higher strength, and the hydrogen is the physical state. So it travels to to support the physicality, while the neutron support the dimension of the soul. That's how this process works. It's a CNO cycle, and it's always, the cycle always uses neutrinos. And as we know, you are hit by millions of neutrinos every day.
Yeah.
That's why I asked, do you know what the oxygen really is?
No. My understanding is quite low. So, and this whole process, I thought our bodies were, they are simple, but yet at the same time, highly complex. This is going through some, as he said, we're like a low energy nuclear reactor. The most illegal thing walking around on this planet is the man. Thank you, Fo. Any more or any comments from anyone? Okay, let's continue a little bit longer. I know we're already past the Dome of Peace, so perhaps we'll do that next. We'll check in with Alex in a few minutes.
What it has as inertia, what it creates inertia in the dimension of floating within the structure, dictates the gravitational magnetic field of the carbon 14 and 16, which our soul absorbs, into what level we connect. And the more purified this becomes, this carbon 14, and the more purified becomes the carbon 12, the deeper, the higher field strength and narrow bandwidth we get to become closer to the Creator. And how this is controlled is through the emotion. Your emotion tells you not to do wrong. When you don't do wrong, there is no attachment. There is no connection of the emotion with the wrong, which allows the soul of the man to connect with the physicality of the man, which becomes to absorb the finer carbon in the structure that allows it to be closer to the soul of the Creator in the dimension of his hydrogen. Then you understand how we are connected with CO2 and CH3, how we are connected in the energizing our physicality in the dimension of the carbon 14, or we get energized in the dimension of carbon 15, CH3. Is very fine and is connector. Carbon for the dimension of physicality of reflection of the lights of the Creator and matter state. Hydrogen in the conformation of life on earth and connection to the Creator. Now you understand why the whole structure of the life of the man goes on the pattern of the inertia, which that inertia is dictated by the energy of the emotion, which itself is the reflection of the direct effect of the physicality on the soul of the man. I made man in the image of myself, and he carries everything that's within me, from emotion to physicality.
Okay, perhaps we'll cut it there. Alex, let's see how we're progressing in the back. Everything is set. We're ready to do the Dome of Peace. Can we continue to create the Dome of Peace at 3:33 my time? Alex, any comment? If you need more time, we can continue this, or we can go one of the questions in the Q&A. All right.
Yeah, just do one more question in the Q&A, and I'll be with you.
Okay. Very well. Take your time. There's no rush. We can continue to extend it. Let's continue on, since this was the train of thought we were on here. But it's just an amazing structure we have. It's much more complex than I think the doctors and the rest realize. And that's why they start to open this thing up, and they don't exactly know what they're doing, because they don't understand the structure they're working with, so to speak, even though their intentions, I think, are good, or they're trying to correct something. They just don't understand what they're working on, in a way, and how to, it's probably not done as much through the physicality as it's done through the energy, or it makes it easier to do without opening up the structure. As Mr. Keshe said, they've been melting kidney stones from thousands of kilometers away. No surgery, no operations, all of that. It's just changing the salinity within the dimension of the kidney somehow.
Now you understand, as knowledge seekers, how you are no different than the tree. The only problem is that they have fed the humanity with the wrong information, that they can abuse the man the way they want with the information. The simplicity of the creation is the beauty of the creation. And the dimension of the inertial connection between the matter light, cosmic lights, and everything else will come in the future. As you are aware, we now work with a very restricted matter state. They talk about the quantum. They talk now, as we have started, about the cosmic rays and cosmic energy. Because Keshe Foundation, with the knowledge it has brought in, has enlightened, has brought a new level of knowledge to the understanding. And as I said, we have set out to create systems which can bring, man can see how energy of the creator is converted into the cosmic rays and converted to CO2, converts to what we call physicality, and back to the way one drop will create the fish, one fish will create the creator. This is the process of the creation. This is what man needs to understand. How simply create life in the universe by one single element, which is hydrogen. The rest is the reflection and the inertia of what that reflection creates by interaction of itself.
Shall we go a little farther? It's obviously getting more interesting. Anyone? Or shall we go to create the Dome of Peace and allow Alex some more time?
Maybe I will explain a little bit further.
Please, we need all the help
Yes.
we can get.
Do you know what's the difference between the CH3 and the NH? One is to feed, the other is to heal. But the atomic mass, in fact, is the same, but it's the side of the maghreb in its form that dictates how it will work out. So the CH3 is for the physicality to feed it, so that the water, the OH, can transform it into a useful transformation through the body. The NH is also, but it's there to protect the body from harm. That's even, so the numbers are the same, but the plasma part is different. That dictates if it's gravitational or magnetical. Do you understand it, or did I explain it too difficult?
Oh, you lost me in the first couple of sentences, but Alex has been talking about hydroxyls and different things. Maybe he'd like to make a comment. Was that your voice I heard, Alex? Anyone else? Okay. Perhaps we should go to the Dome of Peace. Thank you, Fo, for contributing. Again, I got lost in the first couple of sentences of what you were saying. You can see I have a long way to go. As I said, I openly admit I understand 1/1000th of one.
I will try again. The CH3 is known as sugar.
Original sugar, yes.
Yes. Normally, the NH, like in nicotine or whatever, is used to soften the energy part in the body. So that's why the smoking is so addictive. Because normally the body makes it itself, but when you go on smoking, it's overproduced, so the body is softened to react on the physical part. Do you get it, or do I explain it too difficult?
I don't come up to your level of understanding at this point. Anyone else would like to interact with Fo or make a comment? Alex, I know you explained something about hydroxyls and so on. I don't know if that connects to what Fo is mentioning here. But again, we all understand according to own.
I just wanted to ask Fo a question. You said NH1, and that's part of smoking. Is that right?
It's how it's placed in the chain from.
And then that's the actual. I mean, if we count, we end up with 15, and the same thing with the CH3. That's 15 as well. And so the if you're smoking, so if the NH1 is softer compared to how the sugar is absorbed, is that what you were saying?
It's about the soul part of that energy from the plasma of in the chain of what you call it, amino acids. So you have a certain chain and you have hydroxide in that chain, but you have also places like the NH and H, and also have the places like the CH3. So the one that takes the CH3 is to feed the physicality. The other one is to soften the energy of the physicality so that it's not to make the temperature drop.
It's the more like the soul part of it in a way, the plasma part.
Yes, because if you look at it, the neutrons in NH is different than the neutron in the CH3.
Okay.
And that explains why there is a difference between the limit that the body can do. One is making that the temperature goes up, and now one is making it that the temperature goes down. It's how your soul reacts. So one is it's overflooding the soul with physical energy. The other helps the soul to maintain his soul energy.
Okay.
That's why the how do you call that? The nicotine is so addictive. It's more to the
because it is to the soul.
Yeah, it's closer to the soul because you can see it when you put sugar on your skin. It doesn't do much. It's just there, and it makes sure when you have a little cut that it can't heal because the energy of the physicality is too much. But if you have NH, like nicotine, you put it on your skin, it's certainly very well as absorbed by the skin. And that's why, how do you call it? The lymph is like a part of a hydrogen atom, because it's the hydrogen one that is not from the physicality, but it's surrounded by the neutron base that we can't see in the physicality, but it's there. And the NH in fact does the same thing with like in the skin and the lymph. So it transfers the energy very quickly.
Okay. Well, I'm going to write myself something. This is the difference between, I mean, if we look at our amino acids, and in a way you're distinguishing between like the hydrogen and the nitrogen, and also the carbon and the hydrogen. So it's very interesting how it works. I never thought of CH3 as in that I can compare it to the NH1, but the count of the number is the same. Okay. Well, thank you. I hope we can learn more from this. Thank you, Fo.
Anyone else? Any other interactions you'd like to voice? Okay. Again, we just gave you a taste of a little bit of what, there's probably another 15 or 20 minutes left in that workshop. But due to the constraints of time and so on, and since we started late, I think we should go to create the Dome of Peace, which is part of our long-term work, let's say. As Mr. Keshe said, this is not a day job. So if you think everything's going to change by you participating in this tomorrow, again, it's the souls are quite low that we're elevating, the world leaders and religious leaders. So it's not something that happens overnight, although it could happen overnight once we reach the collective awareness of humanity and they start participating in this process. We know that the physicality follows the energy dimension. So this is why we're trying to learn about ourselves and create this energy dimension and this giving and receiving of fields. This is how you'll operate in that space that we refer to. This is the space technology, sort of giving and receiving, perhaps on the emotional level. So the first step of the Dome of Peace is to release some Gans waters, and let's hear from Stefania. And this is at the request of Mr. Keshe, where we can collectively participate in this. And this is called the Dome of Peace for Sunday. So every Sunday at 12 and 6, you'll hear this. We release the plasma water. You give intentions to it, and it elevates the soul of the planet. And Mr. Keshe, of course, joked that this is the way you take over a planet, by changing the soup in a way, or elevating the soul. We don't want to destroy the soul. We want to elevate the soul. So join us every Sunday. This process continues until we reach a permanent peaceful condition. But let's hear from Mr. Keshe. Stefania. Thank you, Stefania. Thank you, Mr. Keshe.
I don't know if anyone want to read this Dome of Peace. Anyone want to offer?
I will
With a nice
read it
voice.
for you.
Okay.
This is what came in and what is now become a pattern. This is from a guy, I don't know him, but he says, please remember this Sunday and every Sunday from now on, till we raise the soul of this planet to a peaceful planet. Keshe Foundation knowledge seekers worldwide will spread the gas waters around the world at 12 p.m. Central European Time and or 18 p.m. Central European Time every Sunday at the same time as they choose which time to suit them. Thank you for participating in this greatest movement by the soul of the man to bring about the peace on this planet as the permanent feature of the life of this planet.
Okay, again, this is something for your physicality to do, but it's a twinity sort of process where we're using the physicality and we're also using the collective power of the souls, which is the next step. So even if you feel uncomfortable using your soul, you can release Gans waters. And this will probably bring you into the other step that is in the energy dimension, something for the physicality to do. And the reason we do it collectively, as we do with the collective powers of the soul, is because we're stronger as a collective rather than as an individual, as I understand it. And that's why it's a collective process. And of course, you're not limited to Sunday. You can release Gans waters anytime you like, but specifically requested as a collective, we do this part on Sunday. And you can choose both times or one time, whatever you'd like to do. If you're not sure how to make a Gans, you can go on the Keshe Foundation wiki and learn a little bit about it. It's very, very simple. And again, I'm sure Newton would be very proud because you're actually showing the transmutation of the CO2 gas into a nano of itself, which looks like a solid or appears as a solid. So we're just using the top third of the water. We're not touching the Gans, but we're using the top third of the water after the Gans has settled and after you've rinsed it, of course. So that's step one in creating the Dome of Peace. The Chinese have been doing it for more than a decade, as I understand it, in the fountains, in the rivers, around your house, however you'd like to release it. It knows where to go and it knows what to do. It has a modicum of intelligence and it seeks to bring balance into whatever situation it puts itself or you put it into. So that's the first step of creating the Dome of Peace. Now we'll go to the collective power of the souls. Thank you, Stefania. Now we want to thank Shweta as well for reading this. And this is the process that continues on a regular basis, on a daily basis. We're all invited to join with the Universal Council at 9 p.m. For the elevation of the souls of all leaders and the soul of totality of the Keshe Foundation, creating peace and everything. And the beauty, again, of this test, or what we're doing here, is that nobody fails the test. So you've already passed before you started. And it's just a matter of applying it the way you do, but this is a collective process. And again, you put all those one stick alone, you can break in your hands. Put 50 or 100 of them together, the stick is much stronger. Can't be broken. And this is what we're doing. We're just waking up the collective power of the souls. So you're all invited. Nobody fails. But again, it's not a day job. It's something for a longer term, but it's opening up your energy dimension at the same time to give and to receive. Oops. So let's hear from Shweta.
Anybody wants to read the Dome of Peace? I mean, beautiful souls. Here. Okay. I'll read this beautiful presentation of Dome of Peace. And the Dome of Peace is already here. All the knowledge seekers, truth seekers, lovers of humanity has built it in a way, spreading the guns, loving each other as shareholders. So I will read this as please remember, every Sunday from now on until we raise the soul of this planet to a peaceful planet, Keshe Foundation knowledge seekers worldwide will spread the Gans waters around the world at 12 p.m. CET and or at 18 p.m. CET every Sunday at the same time, as they choose which time to suit them. Thank you for the participation in this greatest movement by the soul of man to bring about the peace on this planet as a permanent feature of the life of this planet. Mr. Keshe suggests we add the next step to create the dome of peace with power of the souls, as we have already going through this with the 2 eyes. And we ask you to spread the Gans waters each Sunday. Now we give you a new path. Now try to unite each other's souls. Try to elevate the souls of humanity, soul of humanity, through your own soul to a level that no one can touch, the embodiment of the human race. So beautiful. Choose a time where all of you come together on the soul level in a state of inner calmness. At that time, don't spread the water of Gans, but spread your soul. Unite, and in time, we will make a new race out of the soul of man. And then, instead of doing it once a week, do it all the time. Keshe.
Okay, thank you again, Shweta. So let's just take a minute of time and demonstrate how this, again, working with the physicality takes a lot of energy and takes a lot of work. But working through the plasma does not take a lot of work and does not take a lot of energy. And of course, as we give, we receive. So you're actually nourishing yourself. I just made a little video of this charger, which we'll use again as a representation of sort of what we're doing. Here we are here, and we're sending a collection of fields to the soul of that. Remember, we're not elevating the man, we're elevating the soul of the man. That if that soul picks up these energies that we're giving freely, again, none of them are stolen, you're creating it, that it will change a dimension within the dimension of physicality of that entity. Again, we're not forcing the change, we're just learning to give. And in that giving, you become nurtured as well. So I'll just play this. I don't know how it will, I think I played it before, but something is a bit messed up. But here we are here, and collectively we're generating fields, emotions, cosmic rays, and we're giving them to the soul of the leaders. So they are in our thoughts. And again, you can do this at any time, but collectively we're doing this at 9 p.m. CET every day. And you can just pulse for 1 second, 1 minute, to whatever you'd like to spend, and extend that, as this will be your communication method in a way, through the emotions as you travel the universe. So let's start now, and we'll just go for 1 minute, and then we'll turn it over to Alex. Here we go. And that's how easy the process is. And don't worry, you're not going to run out of energy, as this is the power supply and we're connected to the universal fields. The more you give, the more you receive. So that's how easy the process is. Again, 2-step, up to you to sort of implement it and expand it. And this is the way we start to communicate in that universe through the emotions. There'll be no mouths, as many of these entities don't have a mouth. But we can do this with any entity here on the earth or across the universe, as I understand it. Anyone want to add anything? We continue this process until we reach that permanent, peaceful position on this planet, so that we could go to the next step, which is more engagement and interaction with our larger family, which we refer to as the universal community. Okay, let's just bring this down. I think we are more than ready for Alex if Alex is ready for us. And he is ready for us. Thank you again, Alex, for joining us. Sorry for all the complications you've had in the background, but obviously, as the pro you are, you've sorted them out quite handily. Thank you for dispatching of those issues, and welcome.
Oh, may have spoken too soon.
Did you say uh-oh spaghettios, or did you say something else?
Oh dear.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Okay.
for us is to pause the recording. If
No,
you
no, no.
feel more comfortable in lining things up. Here we go.
There is definitely something different going on. So, thank you all for coming today, and thank you for putting up with all the technical delays. But I think it is influenced by outside forces. So we all have to adapt, and that's what we are. We have that capability. So this is the Keshe American Knowledge Team meeting of 2026, and thank you all for being here. So let's take care of some business.
Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
Well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see how we're doing. Mark, I just want to ask one question. How is the volume?
More than ample, but clear, concise.
More than ample? Should I turn the volume down?
No, I don't think so. I think it's fine.
Okay. All right. I want to thank everyone for being here. Just a moment. Can you just give me one moment, please?
Of course, of course. Take your time. I was just looking for that experiment on YouTube. I'm searching for that. It hasn't come up. Does anyone know the name of the scientist that conducted that experiment showing weight of soil and tree? But I'm not finding that particular one. I need to change my search parameters here. Weight of soil and tree growth, perhaps. But I saw this experiment just a few weeks ago. And I probably should have bookmarked it. I thought about that. I think it was something that was conducted in the late 1800s or perhaps early 1900s, but it's not popping up. Probably should look. Yes, found it?
No, I haven't found it.
Okay, no problem. I'm doing that. You can sort out what you need to sort out here.
Okay, Mark, shall we try this?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, here we go. This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute teachings on advanced Pico tech. The subject today is excommunication. My name is Alexander. I am from Canada. It is May the 3rd of 2026, and this is part of the Keshe Foundation North America Plasma Education Series. So welcome one and all to this continuing series. We have been doing this for many years, and our challenge, of course, is to move ahead at the same time without leaving anybody behind. So in this public teaching, we were talking in this series about margins, modulation, X factor, bagels, and of course, today is the excommunication. So when we review, when we talk about the margins, we often refer to the error part. So there's not a margin of grace, but a margin of error. And we refer to this in financial terms. By example, what happens if we decrease our margin by $20? And if you look at a case where A has $40 and A now decreases it by 20 and only has $20, and B had $20 and B now has less, that $20 becomes zero. And the difference used to be $20, but now the difference is still $20, but there's a new factor that's come into play. A is wealthy and B is broke. And so a lot of people think that that's an excellent business plan. So that's one of the reasons we have this factor of modulation, which is the process of a systemically varying a high frequency carrier signal's amplitude, frequency, or phase using a low frequency message signal. So we see the margin, but there's another association that goes along with it. And so this is the same with frequencies. We can enable efficient data transmission over long distances in radio, TV, and telephone systems. This allows multiple signals to share frequencies without interference. Well, the object, of course, is to isolate the X factor, because that is the aim. We do target practice, we modulate our aim, we adjust it up or down or left and right. And the idea is that X marks the spot. And that's the X factor that we're choosing. So we don't want to deviate from that. And that's why we need shepherds. And we say the Lord is my shepherd, protecting me from wolves, until, of course, I'm plump and ready for market and, of course, ready for slaughter. And that makes us kind of the chosen ones. So we choose a lot of things to do. And in that physical process of choosing, we use something called contraction, where muscles tighten or muscles relax. Fists can clench and fists can open. But in that process of contraction, we find that that is an action where the opposite, fists cannot not open. You cannot not do something. And this theme is prevalent in a lot of our work, because not does not work. And so one of the things we see when we talk about these last two thoughts in the 10 Commandments, number one, I am the Lord your God. And number two, thou shalt not. You shall not do this and not do that. And it keeps repeating through all the commandments, including the additional 14, as we've talked about, for a total of 24 commandments. And it seems to be an overriding theme that thou shalt not do this, but you have to ask yourself, well, wouldn't it be just simpler to tell me what to do? And so we keep focusing on the aspect that we are fallen angels. And in that process, we increase our density. We fall through weakness. And in that process, we increase our density and, of course, increase pressure and increase gravity. That increases our dependence on Earth space feeding. But we have to remember that there's an internal pressure of the Gans fields that balance things out. So the angular momentum of the angular density is conserved. And it's done so by balancing. So that's another question. Are we fallen angels or are we arrived? So when we look at contraction and we substitute it for confrontation, we set up these duals. And duals involve duality. They require energy. That energy can manifest as friction. And when there's friction, of course, well, fists can be created and they manifest into fighting, of course. That's what fists are doing. All of this represents an inertia density manifestation of these two forces coming together. And of course, we want to do that in a very graceful manner. So gentlemen, please shake hands and then come out fighting. So the whole purpose of the fighting is really energy binding. And this is important in our self-serving needs. That's the dimension point, that point of me, myself, and I. And of course, my focus is best suited when I do this at the expense of others. So if I only have $20 more than you, then I have a little bit more. But if I have $20 and you have nothing, then I am rich and you are poor. So we have all become quite poor because of this pursuit of so-called happiness through our financial gain. And we become loose leakers. And that becomes a real penalty where we lose our vitality. So we're seeking vitality enhancement. And frankly, no one has enough money to achieve that kind of physical balance that comes with the emotional and physical context of vitality enhancement. There's more, there's something that's missing. And whether it's regular or whether it's super, it also depends on other factors, unseen factors. And so today we're bringing up the subject of excommunication because excommunication is the most severe ecclesiastical censure. We all know about censorship. It's formally excluding a baptized person from church membership, sacraments, and the fellowship in religious communities, particularly in Roman Catholicism. They say it is medicinal rather than vengeful, aiming to encourage repentance and the ultimate return to full communion. So, in many ways, you become a fallen angel when you're already referred to as a fallen angel. But Pope Eugene III had a problem in mid-12th century. He held a synod in order to deal with the large number of heretical groups. Mass excommunication was used as a convenient tool to squelch heretics who belonged to groups which professed beliefs radically different than those taught by the Catholic Church. So, does that include science? Does that include matter state? Which matter state, which dimension? We have two matter plasma dimensions. One is gravitational, which is very physical. You can touch it and see it. And we have a magnetical plasmatic dimension, but you can't touch it or see it. So we say the plasmatic is the feeding and the physical is the feedback. But since the plasmatic is the substructure for the physical, then it too becomes part of the feedback. And so whether we recognize the different matter plasma dimensions, we are still feedback dominant. And that's part of the problem, because we have been looking at the old science, which keeps us in that box of containment. And in order for us to understand how to get out of that box, we have to understand that doubling up is not enough. Orders of magnitude increase our field strength by power of 10. And so when we can go from the mega to the giga to the tera, we can also go in the other direction, the micro, the nano, and the pico. And this enters the field of plasma science. So we have to ask ourselves, well, how big is large? Or how about how small is small? And you notice the similarity between the bigness and the smallness. So how does that work? Well, there's nothing smaller than the PM ticks, which are part of the principal matter, and being so small, they're magnetical. And they're packed as a parcel and delivered, just like the delivery company delivers. But they bring you antimatter, dark matter, and a matter gen, the coming together of three different fields. And these force fields all can dilute into a kind of a conversion state. That conversion state is a plasmagen state that is a transition state. But that's not the final destination. As fallen angels, we come to this maggrav state, highly gravitational, we call Earth space. And it interacts with our plasmagen state, and we call that inertia. It's a field interaction, and this is how we land. So did we just fall out of the sky, or did we arrive? Well, when we look at the Beijing experiment in 2025, we now see one set of knowledge and a new set of knowledge. And since May the 10th of 2025, the gold rush began. And now this year, the silver rush has begun. And every day as that goes by, there's a new rush. There's a new rush to find out something that we've always known. Because at the heart, at the soul, at the point, that pico-atomic point that goes beyond the nanomonatomic state, there's a pico beacon. And this is a gravitationally inherent field strength that creates an emission array. So we go from that nebulous, blurry point in the nanogap. Brings up an important question. Is the point or the gap more important? So when we're looking at the different pathways, we have the transmission highway, which is our familiar carbon-12. We have the transition highway, that carbon-14, and we have the transmutation highway, the carbon-16. The transition and transmutation highway operate as isotopes. The transmission highway operates as an element. But there are two. There's carbon-16 and carbon-8. The total is carbon-24. There's a carbon-14 and a carbon-10. The total is 24. Well, where's the other carbon-12? It's only one. And that becomes the inertia field. Where is the support structure? I don't know. I can't see it. And so this is what we've been trying to teach as part of Marin Tavakoli Keshe's books. Like number one, the universal order, the creation of matter. We can see the matter, but we can't see the antimatter. But there's this dark point in between. We have to understand that if there is dark matter, Where is the light matter? There are two choices, antimatter or matter. Well, obviously, since we're in the matter state, when we go into a room, we'd like to turn on the light. Or when we get up in the morning, the sun brings us the light. And since the sun is bringing it, let's look at the book number 2, the structure of the light. That means it comes from the sun and comes to us. So there has to be some kind of connection. And there has to be some kind of method of travel. What is that vehicle? And then when we look at book number 3, the origin of the universe, we see that point splits up into 2 points. So what we have to understand is that it's a two-way street. One point goes to another point, and that one point can split up into 2 points. Well, those 2 points are also points and are connected. So our tiny little perfect world, which we call man's universe, has a special point, which we call our Earth space, and it's just a small part. But we seem to, shall we say, gravitate to even smaller places. We have a country. Oh, well, we have a home. Oh, well, maybe we have a condominium or a modern cave. What about the rest of the man's universe? And then what about the sister universe, which is even bigger? So we have been trying to connect for 428 weeks with Rick Raman and the members of the Universal Council through the One Planet, One Nation, One Race for Justice and World Peace. Connect to what? We can't connect to each other because we don't understand the plasma rule, where the higher strength feeds the weaker strength. We feel that the higher strength should eat the weaker strength, or the higher strength should beat up the weaker strength, or dominate, or dictate. Either way, all of these zones become transaction zones, and it can be a point of conflict. And although one side is trying to kill the other side, it becomes a binding zone because both sides are trying to kill the other side. And which one is your side? And so this is all part of the inertia density manifestation. And this is kind of the dilemma, because eventually, if everybody kills everybody, then who's left standing? Well, in all cases, you are the last man standing, because there are sequences. There's a gravitational attraction, that's part of the feedback. There's a magnetical repulsion, that's part of the feeding. So you, as the last man standing, you have choices. You can either turn on and turn off the feeding, you can increase or decrease the strength, or you can enhance and diminish your position. And this is where the stronger feeds the weaker. So this is not a decision or a choice that you can defer. So that choice for you is your transaction zone. And when you're by yourself in singularity, that requires a solo effort. But it's a lot easier to go in duality. That duality can act in singularity. And that requires a partnership. And a partnership requires reciprocity. So the duality to act in singularity requires a balance of incentives. And that's what we keep talking about, this balance of incentives to minimize that folding deviation that allows for the folding and the amino acid star formation. And so we see that the solar system has a series of elements, and the human body has a similar series of elements. So there's a common denominator between the two. The solar system has planets, and we have organs. What is the similarity there? It has to do with the density. Gravity seeks density, and density operates within that Coulomb barrier. But that Coulomb barrier that we understand is in our Earth space. What kind of barrier is there in the sun space? And so to maintain this barrier, there has to be a balance, and the maggrav is constantly in balance. And so we can have concentric circles, or we can have spirals. They manifest our field. Or, as we talked about last week, we can have bagels. And what constitutes a bagel? If it doesn't have a hole in the middle, it's not a bagel, is it? So we ask the question, which is more important? Well, the thing is, when two forces come together, we get to choose our planet. And we wonder, is that just a dream? We create this X, Y, and Z axis of our reality, and we facilitate an inertial manifestation, regardless of the time and distance, because we're not the only planet. It just happens to be the planet that we chose. And so we have this overlapping construct of concentric circles and spirals. And there's something in between. There's some kind of bonding action, and we can't see it. So when we look at frequencies, they represent a sine wave. And so a sine wave in singularity has a lot of ups and downs. But because of our digital viewpoint, we only see the tops. But when we put a sine wave in duality, say we have overlapping sine waves, those tops seem to flatten out a little bit. And so each of these tops is like a point, and that point becomes like a beacon. So that point is like a nanocharge, and the beacon is like a charger, and the energy is discharged, and it comes out from the center. We see that with raindrops. We see that with dynamic plasma. There's an inside of the plasma and an outside of the plasma. And around the plasma, we have an aura. There's an inside of the aura and outside of the aura. And so in order for us to continually identifying who we are, we always have to say, well, this is me and this is not me. So me is inside my skin, and outside of my skin is not me. But the aura is outside. So at some point, the aura has a difference, where one part is me and the other part is not me. So when we come and arrive to this planet, we have to ask ourselves, are you welcome to stay? Or are you unwelcome? And since the notion of excommunication is ever present, who decides who excommunicates you? So our point of view is only the tops. The bottom is the blur fill. That's the path link. Is it dangerous to look? To look at the other side? There are rules. But we have to recognize the susceptibility. There's always an upness, and that's versus a downness. So we see how it's up, but the downness is a blur fill, and we know that it's there because we keep getting this up. But is it dangerous to go down? And what do you mean by down? Not down under, not upside down. When we put our boots on the ground, they're always on the ground and not on the ceiling. So it doesn't matter where we are. So which way is up and which way is down? We seem to have it all figured out, except when we look at the funnel transmission between what is feeding the soul, which is man-specific, and how it comes here, and it feeds back from the environment, which is the presence of physicality, we find the combination of the two is the feeding soul intention, the emotion of presence. So we have the feeding of the soul of the man and the feedback of the environment. And we create this emotion of presence. And the reflection of that comes within our RNA and DNA relationship, where within this peace dome shielding of our physicality on this planet, which came from this RNA feeding, that's part of the feeding state, but there's an mRNA feedback, that's part of the feedback state. So what do we have in between? We have this matter-gen reflection state, the creation of the DNA. So the interaction of the RNA and the DNA, well, this is how it acts. It's like a raindrop beacon. The waves go up and the waves go down, but there's a point. There's always a bullseye right there. That magnetical strength of the raindrop is imparted through its gravitational inherent picocore. So the energy is at the center and it is transmitting. So if we create this laminar flow, we can create this physical acceleration. And unlike a wave, we can create this plasmatic superconductivity by having a gravitational containment and a magnetical blur fill. So there's no friction, which is different from a wave, because the intensity of the inness is stronger and the wave goes out. And there's a diminishing of the energy. But ironically, the diminishing of the energy creates a bigger wave. And the energy is connected. And it goes from point to point. And each point is one part of the flow. So one part is me. And when it goes out, well, that's not me. But in between, there's a whole series of me's and not me's. And this is how we traverse no man's land. And what is no man's land? Well, that's the question, isn't it? So when we look at these waves in singularity, they don't go in one direction, but they go in all directions. So in this case, left and right. But if you have waves in duality, if waves are going up, you can't have only upness. You have to have two sides. You have to have waves in duality, where you have a combination of upness and downness. So you have an inness and outness and an upness and downness. Well, that takes care of your two dimensions, but what we saw in Beijing, when the two fields worked together on each point and were set up in a star formation, it was raining gold. But that gold was in the Gans formation. So there was a limit to how much it could be produced. It wasn't specific enough. It was kind of a blur fill. And so when we look at these dynamic reactors, we can say, well, that blur fill is like a bagel. because it's at the center. But the funny thing about the bagel is it has a hole in the center. That's what makes a bagel. So we were able to do something different. We created real gold in that blur fill. And you see the transition in the left picture, the original plate, in the middle, the transition, and the final product, the material, physical manifestation of the inertia density manifestation in physicality of the gold. So if we look at the structure of the transmission bagels, each of these bagels has a common denominator, and each one has a hole in the middle. And the pathway along these bagels is either over, under, or through. But if we turn them 90 degrees, make them transition bagels, they still have a common denominator. They still have a hole in the middle. But now the stacker is aligned, and it's aligned differently. And so maybe when we were talking about the stacker formations in the past, with the cup of the soul, the cup of energy, the cup of emotion, cup of physicality, and the cup of the earth, and the connection, number 4, the cup of inertia, we find that the magnetical is up and the gravitational is down. But each of these cups is a point, just like these bagels. And each of these bagels has an upness and a downness. And don't forget about the hole. And so we're known as the four-wheelers. And so if we set up these bagels in a four-wheel alignment, we create axis of stability by running an axle between two bagels right through the hole. And we have two sets of two bagels. That's 4 bagels with 2 axles. And when you sit inside, well, you're in the gravitational in part. Outside of this containment is the magnetical out part. So there's a magnetical on the right and there's a magnetical on the left. It doesn't matter which way you're going. You're always gravitationally in. Get in the car. So what happens to our understanding when we look at atomic bagels? You know, the atomic means uncut. And so most of us, we have a preference on how we cut our bagels. So we can lay the bagel down and slice it in half, and so we cut it that way. So you have a left part and a right part. Well, maybe we can cut it through the middle. We have an up part and the down part. So we say the magnetical is up and the gravitational is down. Well, what if we take each part and we cut that in half? So which part is up and which part is down? Because one has to be magnetically up and the other one has to be gravitationally down. So we see the connection in our phospholipids when we set up linear bagels. So if we say on the outside, we have these phospholipids with hydrophilic heads and hydrophobic tails. and there's this linear bagel connection from one to the other. And on the inside, we have these phospholipids with these hydrophobic tails and these hydrophilic heads. And so what's in between? We have this transition zone. It's unaccounted for. So we managed to cut our bagels and how close do we keep them and how far apart do we keep them? And so if we're talking about frequency modulation, when we look at the sine waves in singularity with the gaps, we see that we can squeeze these bagels. So if we just look at them as the points, there's an upness and a downness. But if we don't have the gaps, we can either squeeze them, which involves contraction, or we can stretch them and just treat all the squeezy points as one point. So the thing about the phospholipid array is that there is a connection between the outside and the inside. And to go from the outside to the inside, it has to cross the transition zone. And so there is continually this crossing over from the outside to the inside and from the inside to the outside. And this is a two-way street. So when we look at the cells and how they arrange the phospholipids, that's what cellular metabolism is. It's the casting out. Casting out as if you were being excommunicated from that gravitational picocore, that bullseye in the middle. That's your gravitational core and the magnetical outside. And so one way is to do it with concentric circles, but it's another way is to do it with a spiral. And so the question then becomes, which is more important, the bagel or the hole in the bagel? Well, let's just take the bagel away and look at what's important as far as the cells are concerned. There's an inherent X factor. It's called calcium. And it is the fundamental gravitational neutron seed that gives you that internal pressure. The calcium is that seed in every cell in your body. And it's at the core. That's on the inside. But that inside is modulated. And there's a margin that it works with. That margin of the phospholipids on the inside, and the margin of the phospholipids on the outside, and the margin between the two phospholipids where the tails come. I hate to say this, the tails come head to head. And then we have this interaction. So this gravitational neutron interaction has this X factor that is choosing based on the out tensity interaction. So we can go around or we can spiral out. And it's in two directions. Well, I'm seeing the two layers and I'm seeing the two directions, but I'm not seeing the complete picture. Because our Earth space is spherical. Our Earth space is like a bagel. It has an outside and it has an inside. And it has a lot of substance on the surface. So that's what we contend with all the time. We want to capture this field, which is rock solid evidence of our physical capture field. And so when we arrived at that reality bullseye dimension. Would you cut your bagel this way? Would you have a magnetical out and a gravitational in? Nothing's changed really. You just still have the bagel, but now you've cut all the way around the gravitational core. And at the core, now that you've cut it that way, you could remove the hole. Well, what happens when you remove the hole? Oh, a hole remains. I thought you got rid of the hole. Well, there's still another hole. It's maybe a bigger hole. Maybe it's more important. We still have the bagel. It's kind of damaged, has a crack in it. Maybe that's important. That allows us to go from the outside to the inside in terms of our physicality now that we remove the hole. And so if we take that hole and we can manipulate it. So that how does that affect our cell metabolism? The casting out that hole. So when you squeeze things together, as you do with the potentiation of hydrogen, in the alkaline state, you can choose factors to make it more intense. And when you're healthy, that X factor is a balance between the intensity and the out-tensity. So the acidic is part of the out-tensity, and these are part of the not chosen factors with respect to our arrival. But in our physical state, I mean, let's face it, we all like our potato chips, our soda pop, our bagels. And so we modulate our DNA when we choose to retrieve those chosen X factors that make us alkaline and healthy. We release those unchosen factors, those acidic modulation factors that make us unhealthy. But if we're not skillful enough in doing that, well, we just get to that anaerobic state where we are dead. There we get to recycle the abdication of the choosing of the X factors. Remember, you're the last man standing and you make the choices. And so this is what we do with our digestion. We convert the food to GANs. That's part of our energy supplementation. And so we absorb that nutrition essence, that gravitational attraction of energy, and we release the waste energy essence. We release the waste essence through the magnetical repulsion of energy. But it's a fight. It's a fight with ourselves, me, myself, and I. So if we get excommunicated, what does that mean? Is that hole in our brain gets extracted? Do we just cut it out and get rid of it? What about heaven on earth? Do we just cut that middle part out and then excommunicate that? Is that how we solve the problem? What about if we had a game excommunication? We just cut the field out. Would it be a game? Would people come to the stadium to watch a hole in the middle of the stadium. What about Saturn? What if we excommunicated the planet? You see the rings, you see the shadows, you see the gaps, and this big fat hole in the middle. It wouldn't even be a planet, would it? So we didn't arrive at the hole, we arrived at that sentimental pie in the sky, which we call Earth space. And we got there because we knew what was not us. Mars was not me, and Venus was not me. But this is me, Earth space, where I have arrived. So who has the authority? And if you, as the last man standing, are not prepared to take the choice, well, someone may have the decision to excommunicate you and assume that authority. So where do you go? When you get excommunicated, it's bye-bye time. So you're excommunicated from what? Your church, your belief, your society, from Earth? Where do you go? Shall we go to Venus? Nope. How about Mars? No, we got to keep out. Oh, Jupiter, you got to stay away from it. Well, we just got to keep on going. And so, what about our solar system? Do we have to just leave that? I mean, when you have the authority of everything, everything includes everything. So when you get excommunicated from everything, where do you go? So maybe everything is just limited to our solar system. And then what's beyond our solar system, well, that's not everything. That's beyond everything. It's a new planet away, where we can excommunicate you as if you were garbage. And we know about garbage, you can't throw it out. There's no planet away. You can't throw the garbage away. The garbage is always there. Just because it's not here, it's there. It's still around. You cannot excommunicate the garbage. Planet away does not exist. So what about the plasma excommunication? You say seeing is believing, but look, in the GANs, in the bottle, it's vanished. It's transparent. There's a hole in the GANs. Do you believe it now? And what is that hole? The glass is the containment, but it's transparent. The water is a containment, but it's transparent. The GANs is a containment, but it has a hole in the center. So one part is the believing, which is knowing, and the other part is the knowing, which is dreaming. And the connection is that emotional feeding or that emotional feedback. It's the same question. What is more important? The substance or the whole in the substance? So when we look at the atomic bagel, we have to understand that when we cut it out this other way, when we cut out the whole, we have to balance off the inside and the outside. You can't just cut away the whole, because the whole is in, and the whole is there. That's what makes the bagel. So there's nothing in the center. Well, there's nothing on the outside either. So the outside is magnetical and the inside is gravitational. And if our boots are on the ground, then the ground is gravitational. Then we have a whole different picture. So there's a magnetical out and a magnetical in. And in between, there's a gravitational downness. So the in and outness of the magnetical forces are the upness. And it's omnidirectional. It's not left and right. It's not up and down, but it's all around. And now we understand the plasma matter dilemma, how we have the balance of the fields of the atomic nano and the GaN state. And you say, well, it's a left and right, but you can go up and down between the two states. And then you have that supporting structure of the plasma state, which has to maintain its own balance of the left and right. And it can also interact with the up and the down. But when you're interacting that way, you are also having a maggrav energy transfer state, which takes you between the non-physical plasma state and the physical pico state. It's a two-way street. So this is what we did when we created the GANs of the soul. We took the cups of life, where one was the cup of emotion, and we took a second cup of emotion, and we created the GANs of the GANs, the cup of emotion. And then we took the cup of physicality, and we took a second cup of physicality, and we created the GANs of the GANs of the physicality. And so now we have the cup of life product, the balance between the emotion and the physicality. And that gave us that pico core, that transaction zone, that X factor, that gravitational field where we arrive. We are that gravitational entity traveling in a magnetical field. Because we are the three dimensions of me, myself, and I. But we have a connection to the cup of the universe, which also has that affinity of the copper GaNs of physicality and the zinc GaNs of emotion, of emotionality, and the carbon connection. And are they working in singularity? Is there symmetry or is there a reflection? And if we understand the X factor of love, that is the connection. So our arrival is coming to that gravitational pico core. That's the downness. And from there, from our mental state, we arrive in that physical state. And that connection is also love. So we see that there's two sides. And so we look at our life as we're pioneering America. We have to determine, is our life a reflection or is it an illusion? It all depends on what you're looking at. And so when we talk about love, do we understand what we're talking about? We have lords in plural, but we also have gods in plural. Look at Aphrodite. She's just one ancient Greek goddess of love. But she's also beauty, passion, and procreation. Central in the Trojan War. Is she two-faced? Or is there something else that's going on? So this opens up a whole new part. we have these multiple turning points where we bring the physicality, the reality of the carbon-12 and the substructure of the carbon-12, and the transition between the carbon-14 and the carbon-10, and the transmutation between the carbon-16 and the carbon-8. And that's just one side of the part. There's always a backup. Well, what about the backup? It has to have its own backup. And so this is what we see. When we look at the cosmic ray equilibrium, we see the stacker. Each field has a magnetical and a gravitational field. And each field has an upness and a downness and an leftness and a rightness and an insideness and an outsideness. And it's the combination of all of them that come together to create that equilibrium. And it's not just a picture, it's dynamic. There's action, there's an interchange, there's an exchange of energy constantly. And where does it go? One of the fields that it goes, of course, is the creation of the free plasma, which is that inherent X factor that connects us to this planet. The creation of the amino acid, that's just one component. That's that transaction zone of one part of our magnetical emission. And there's another transaction zone of another star formation of the amino acid. And the combination between the two has this squeezy plasma state in the picocore, that gravitational core, that creation of life, of that structure within a structure. So the structure of the cell has an inside and outside, and then the cells have a collection where we have an inside and an outside, and our aura has an inside and outside, and then we see that there's an inherent susceptibility and singularity when we look at the GANs of gold. And there's an inherent susceptibility in the duality by interacting with us. We are the X factor, that external input of the GANs field of humanity. And guess what? We create this gravitational completion of the manifestation of gold in its physicality. So when we measure things, we have to look at the counterweight measures as well. So you can't just say in the physical state, well, there's a weight, in the atomic state, there's a mass. That's only part of the gravitational picture. The nuclear state involves Teslas, and the plasma state involves time. That's part of the magnetical picture. So when you have this magnetical and gravitational picture, now we understand how we're producing the gold, but also we understand how the plasma comes together, where you have this plasmatic manifestation. And no two plasmas are the same, just like no two bagels are the same. But when they come together, they create this array point, this physical manifestation between the magnetical and gravitational fields. That becomes the transaction zone. And the determination of where it is dependent on its position. There's always this gravitational certainty. There's always this emission rate and array and how it's crossing the threshold. And we can see that with oxygen. That is part of the inherent gravitational X factor. It's a non-visible X factor gas. And it allows us to have this plasmatic decay to GANs. And that GANs decay can go from gas to liquid to solid. And so that's all achieved gravitationally from that magnetical emission that's coming to this physical anchorage. And we know that it's gravitational because we can see the light. It has its own emission spectrum, its own fingerprint. And so we see that we need this supplementation from this Earth space because it's due to consumption of what is on this planet. We arrived without it, but when we got here, we acquired the knowledge. It was a conditional teaching by ancient teachers. So we arrived with an unconditional teaching by the Creator. So this 20% supplementation is what's holding us back. And so now we have this new awareness on how to cross that historical threshold between the cosmic feeding and the loosh harvesting, which we become so dependent on. So we had inherent attributes. There's this gravitational confirmation, that center point, that picochord, that gravitational certainty. That's a mutually assured construction. So when we look at the cornerstones of the spheres and we say, well, there's 3 dimensions, are we the litter that are here or here or here? And is that where X marks the spot? Or are we the blurry point of stability, that blurry point of security, that blurry point of certainty? Well, wherever you are, there you are, because you are part of the 3 dimensions of your position, bullseye. And modulation targets your position. And you are the last man standing. You make the choices as you travel through this uncharted territory. You are an array within an array. And there are many stars beyond the nanomonatomic state that cover the full range from the decay to the radiation. And you're part of that process. You are the AI, that ancestral intelligence. You are the technology. You are the inertial product, and you're the image of your dimensional convergence point. And why is that? Because you have the capability to discriminate, to select your personal star of physicality, to be filtered through the soul of physicality of our sun. And you cross that blur fill threshold where you come to your pre-selection process, that soul of physicality of all the stars of the universe. And the sun is shielding on many levels to discriminate. And what is not filtered is the emotion of position. So when you arrive at that point of stability, that gravitational stability, you have a choice. You have that inertia manifestation of your physical density. And from there, you emit a magnetical stability. We call that elevation. And in between, you have this manipulation of your emotional position. That gives you an emotional stability. And so we see that we're not alone. The entire humanity civilization has this dependency on this X factor. And we are all inherent with this beacon array, regardless of our nationality, regardless of our ethnicity, regardless of our skin color. And we know that is true because all 7 civilizations have the same story of the Great Flood. And yet we navigate through life in constant conflict because we don't understand how energy is portable. Energy modulation through state transition is a 2-way street. Elevation involves the physical matter state to energy state transition. Inertia is the energy state to physical matter state transition. So elevation involves expansion. That's on the outside. And the physical manifestation involves contraction. That's on the inside. And you know that is true because of the bagel science that shows you how you achieve the greater oneness after 640 knowledge seeker workshops in a row. We're now suddenly transcending the limitations of the nuclear science and understanding what our research centers are doing, how they're converting diamonds to gold or silver. So join these research teams because we are in the new era past May the 10th of 2025. where we are part of the pico core of truth. And there's a communication, not an excommunication, but a real communication, the One Nation Network, where we have a scientific rescue that opens up the blinds, hits the bullseye, and modulates that X factor One Nation Network at a time. And that time is now, because here we are with these embedded inherent frequencies that are at cross purposes, as we've shown in the 630th Knowledge Seekers Workshop, how the soul and the solar physicality threshold requires a blur fill, and the soul and solar physicality always hits the bullseye. So how do we cross that blur fill? Well, you are the modulator. You have the power. You can make the choice. And our mission is to bring peace on earth and join humanity with the universal community. We want to bring man as equal to all the beings in the universe by teaching the plasma science and technology equally to everyone, that no one is left out and no one is abused due to that lack of knowledge. So help us achieve this goal. It's not just our goal, it's your goal. We are all part of the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute teachings on plasma science. We are all the beautiful plasma travelers of the carbon nations, learning about the new frequencies of the new organic plasma science. One method is with the World Peace Treaty. You can sign it, but in all cases, you have to choose it, and you have to choose it unconditionally and mean it sincerely. The point of the true Picotech is the seed core manifestation. This reduces the margin between the war dome and the peace dome. Is the inertia of the present governed by dimensions of history, or is it time to learn the history of self in a universal context? The pico state is a superconductor with a marginal strength. And so you choose that margin, because the excommunication leaves a hole, and that hole connects the inertia picocores of the matter, plasma, and the universal states. So there is no a way. There's only a way. You can enhance the plasma science and do it daily via the peace dome. And we're seeking a practical exchange for peace on earth. So welcome to that new golden outer space age. And unfortunately, some of the bagels were destroyed in the process of this presentation, but I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for allowing me to present.
Okay, and thank you, Alex, for presenting. And what happens to these bagels when you bring them into the lab? Do they change their structure? Do they transmute? I know it's an analogy, but what happens when you take this knowledge into the lab? Or do we take it into our own lab, which is our own structure? Is that more practical at this point?
You see, that is an excellent analogy, okay, because we've always looked at the vertical people, the plants, as being chemical factories. So we talk about how they, take the energy from the sun and they process it. But what we found is that they take the minerals from the soil and they also process that. And we find that different plants have different positions, and they seem to be quite adept at choosing them. We also find that different plants have different mineral structures. So in other words, the plants have a different affinity for different elements. And so the elements actually help in their choosing. So are the plants attracted to a certain point because of that mineral consistency? Because that is what they want? Or did they arrive and actually through that chemical process, what we call growth, agriculture, are they cleansing? Are they absorbing the things that we don't need? Each plant has its own requirement. That requirement is not a vacuum that vacuums up the toxicity in a bag and then throws it away. Bah, get it out of here. It processes it. It exchanges the energy, the physical manifestation of that toxicity, and reprocesses it into an energy of nutrition. If that were not true, then the plants that you ate would poison you. But it is true that some plants do poison you. So how do you rationalize the balance of that? And this is where our knowledge has to expand. We cannot just look at that factor and say, oh, well, this is good and this is bad. Because obviously it's good for some and not for others. And when we say good for some and not for others, we're not saying some are more equal than others. All are equal. But that balance is made in a certain way. It's a balancing act. And each of us has our own core, our own picocore. And each of us has that balance point in between. And it's not static, it's dynamic. Because we take into reference others, other people, other plants, other animals, other environments, other planets, other solar systems, and it just continues. All that energy processing and energy transaction is done on every level throughout. So, what is at the core? It just seems to be a whole. But is that what you see? If what you see is what you get, then in fact you get nothing. And we are teaching the plasma science to show you that nothing is nothing. Something is always something, as opposed to being something else. Thanks for the question.
Good. Thank you for addressing it. You talk about plants and so on, and I did find what I think was the experiment. And I'll just read this little, what Mr. Keshe was referencing about the mass of the tree in the soil. I put it in the chats there. In 1634, Jan Baptist van Helmont was arrested by agents of the Spanish Inquisition for the crime of studying plants and other phenomena. And apparently that's where he came up with this experiment with the measuring the soil and the weight, the mass, and how the tree. And apparently his conclusion at the time was because the idea was that plants grew by eating soil. But I guess he proved that that wasn't the case because the soil weighed the same. It was exactly pretty much the same. And he concluded that the tree grew by drinking water. But at least we have the freedom to investigate on our own. Apparently the Inquisition agents were arresting people for being too inquisitive about certain phenomena and plants and other things. So you can see how the knowledge was definitely curtailed at that point in time and even up to today, but a little bit more sophisticated, let's say.
Well, I would categorize that as extreme excommunication, you know. When the church excommunicates you, well, you have to leave because of your narrative doesn't, jive, shall we say. But in the extreme excommunication, well, the era that you described was very extreme.
Yeah, and of course, as we've heard in the foundation, this is where science meets the soul of the man. It's explainable. It's the process of creation, which again I was blind to, and I still am partially blind to it. But we know there is a scientific method, as this is the way the universe works. This is the way the creator works. Even though we hear a lot of times it's just releasing of fields and the creator just lets it go and see what's created out of it. But at least we have the ability to investigate, where 900 years ago that was illegal, so to speak. Okay, let's see if anyone has any questions they'd like to bring up or share, or perhaps on something else. I thought Freed's question was interesting about hypnosis. I had thought about that last week or the week before, thinking I'd ask Mr. Keshe if that had anything to do, or what's this take on hypnosis? Are we dealing with the soul of the man, the soul of physicality, the physicality? And so he said they'd go into much deeper understanding as these research centers opened up. So we continue to support the research centers, as this will be some of the most advanced science ever conducted, and probably the most advanced science ever conducted on this planet. And maybe one day we'll have a privilege of visiting for a period of time. Or again, you are that research lab, but there are some things happening in the matter state as well. And it's all being put into the new plasma cities. I think this is part of it, and maybe some other things. Anyone would like to ask a question?
Alex, I when I was asking Fo about his well, the way that the NH1 and CH3 work, one on a plasma level and one on a physical level, and it's I mean both weights, atomic weights or whatever you want to call it, were 15, and using different elements and so on. I am just trying to think, like, if we think in terms of fields, then a lot of things that we have every day that we that are part of our lives, part of what we eat. In the case that Fo was explaining, smoking and yeah, various ways, and they do end up, let's say, adding up to the same energy of fields, but with different elements involved. Is it, I mean, are we sort of fragmenting everything? And it's not really necessary to do it if we could just figure out the fields straight. And then how do we figure out when they act on us in a different way? Like one is plasma and the other one is the matter state.
Yeah, no, this is exactly correct. So we seem to view the science only from the physical state. And, you know, the whole notion of isotopes, you know, is bringing out a problem, if you will, because the problem is in the stability. You see, oxygen is very stable and it's very gravitational, and it's, you know, a very important component on this planet, but is not the largest component of the atmosphere. It only makes up in the range of around 20%, let's say, whereas the nitrogen is just under 80%. So both are gases in their physical state, but what is the similarity? And, you know, when you look at the difference between oxygen and hydrogen, Hydrogen is magnetical, gravitational is oxygen is gravitational. So let me repeat, hydrogen is magnetical, oxygen is gravitational. So everything else that's in between is in the transition state. What do you have in between the two? Well, you have nitrogen and you have carbon. But if the carbon is at the core, then you could say with respect to oxygen that the carbon is magnetical. With respect to the oxygen, you could say that the nitrogen is magnetical. But if you look at the relationship between carbon and oxygen, nitrogen is in the middle. It becomes the transition zone. If you understand that every element in the periodic table of elements represents the physical side of the equilibrium. There is a plasmatic side of the equilibrium. That is the part that facilitates the transition. And that is the difference between the physical elements of the periodic table of elements and the isotopes. So if you say carbon-12, you're talking about physical carbon. If you're talking about carbon dioxide, you're talking about the gaseous molecular state of carbon, because a molecule involves two elements, carbon and oxygen. But if you're involving the plasmatic state, it also is carbon dioxide. Well, oxygen needs a magnetical state, and so the carbon could be that state. But hydrogen could be that state, and when that happens, then the oxygen becomes water. What happens when the carbon engages with the hydrogen? Well, as Fo said, that becomes sugar. But that sugar is actually energy. And the body processes it through the interaction between the oxygen and nitrogen. And so neither one of them is in its physical elemental state. They're in an isotropic state. And the isotope facilitates the transition state. So if you add one, you subtract from the other. And that's just a simple equation. That's a simple equilibrium. But life isn't exactly that simple, because the energy is constantly in motion. And so each point, whether it's a hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, or oxygen point, there's an exchange of energy. Energy comes in and energy goes out. And energy goes through and energy goes around. And this is the thing that we have to understand, that in order for it to be something, it has to have the magnetical gravitational relationship, and it has to exchange energy. And in the process of exchanging energy, it is modified and modulated through its nearness and proximity to other things. And when the conditions are right, it will produce what it wants. And you know that is true because there are gold mines, there are copper mines, there are magnesium mines, there are iron mines. So
don't forget about diamond mines. We all love those.
Exactly. So, you have
So
a selection.
the condition that the inertia of that area can be different.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
So the Earth space is an ideal condition for us. But the thing about the Earth space is we know that it's polluted. So not everyone can tolerate that. So why did we come here? We came here because of the same way that the plants come here. We came here to clean up the mess.
Yes. And the
So,
plants do a good job.
yes, but they are catalytic. They don't absorb the toxicity.
Okay.
Like when I say they don't absorb the toxicity, the reference to toxicity has to have a reference point. So if what they're absorbing is toxic to us, then you would say that they're absorbing the toxicity. But if you're looking at it from their point of view, they're absorbing what they wish to absorb. So that toxicity for us is then being eliminated by them.
Mm-hmm.
So they are using that toxicity and converting it to energy, which is their nutrition.
Right.
So you could say, well, they are feeding themselves. But what is the net result? Is that they are converting what is toxic to us to being inert. It's actually being removed from the environment and it's changing the condition. So you know that this is true because if you remove man from an area, and we've seen that with the dumps. We've seen dumps that are,
Yes.
less than 20 years old, and you go into these dumps and, things have disappeared, things have disintegrated. You can even take metal objects and throw them into a dump, and they will actually dissolve and become diluted into the energy of the universe. That's what plasma dilution is that transition point where things are undifferentiated. So the physical manifestation is a inertia density convergence. And the density in terms of physicality becomes intense. We call it gravity. But in
Question.
yes, go ahead.
Does that have something to do with the fact that Mr. Keshe says that the generation of gold in China generally occurs on top of existing gold in the ground?
Yes, of course, because the existing gold in the ground has already demonstrated the affinity to the condition
In that area. Okay.
in that specific area.
And he says he wants for us to donate him some gold so that they can make more stuff. What does that mean?
Well, it becomes a seed. All right, it is already a manifest seed. The gold that is produced in China is different from the gold that's produced in Canada.
Because it's a different area. Okay.
So the purity is different. And this is something that we are lazy about. We're saying, oh, yeah, well, it's just a car. I'm driving a car. Well, that's okay. So you're driving a Rolls Royce, are you? No, 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 no. I'm driving a car. Yeah, but a Rolls Royce is a car. Well, not that car. Okay. So we're not specific enough. So we just kind of round things off, and when we see that that's okay, we're not very precise. Well, you go to a dart tournament and you say, well, I'll just hit the board and I'll win the game. No, no, you have to be very precise. You have to hit that bullseye. You know, close doesn't count except in horseshoes. So we're just not precise enough in our society, and we don't discriminate enough. We think that discrimination is a bad thing. Well, the discrimination is for us to excommunicate someone from our social existence. So we discriminate by race, but we're all part of the same race. So, imagine if plants did the same thing. Oh, let's get rid of that corn. That corn, they look so yellow, Imagine grapes, it says, well, grapes don't like corn. Well, what if the purple grapes don't like the green grapes? Well, now you get a problem. Imagine the discrimination for the purple grapes. We're going to eradicate green grapes. Well, wait a second, you're all grapes. Oh, yeah, but those guys are green grapes. It just becomes ludicrous. So when we talk about excommunication, which is extreme discrimination, where are you going to go? If the authority is saying, I am all omnipotent, I am everything, and then you want to excommunicate something, where am I going to go? There is no other place because everything includes everything. And I had this situation in my own family, so why do we want to do that? And I said, well, because this would help solve our issues. Well, we've tried everything. Well, everything includes everything, and this was not included in that everything. So we haven't tried this. So let's try this. And guess what happened? After 8 years of wasting my money on various health methodologies, allopathic and otherwise, in 3 weeks, I got my health back. So what am I going to say? Well, that was the thing that I didn't try. And then what am I going to say? Well, that was lucky. Was it lucky? Was it lucky? I guess I was lucky. I was lucky to be able to get a second chance. Because when I was 35, the doctor gave me 6 months to live. And he didn't give me many choices. Operation, radiation, or death. I said, what is this? Let's make a deal. What is it, door number 1, door number 2, door number 3? I don't like any of those doors. Well, I found another door. And that's what we're looking at. There's another door. So we were talking about that in more detail.
Thank you, Alex.
I was wondering if I should bring this point up, but there was a famous broadcaster in Canada, and he had a serious problem with, going to the washroom. And he had surgery. And I thought, this is kind of strange. Because, well, what happens when you remove a hole? You leave a hole. It's like,
It's like the bagel.
like the bagel. I just, I just couldn't get my head around that. And I said, like, how is that a solution? So it isn't just that, you remove the hole, but now you have a bigger hole. But,
Yeah.
When I looked at the bagel, there is a part that's inside. If I remove that hole, I have to grab onto something. So I look at it and I say, yeah, well, there's something that I'm actually physically removing. And then what's left behind? And I don't think anybody ever cuts a bagel this way. But
Not that I've seen.
you go to the restaurant, would you like your bagel sliced? Imagine if they give it to you this way. What am I going to do with that? Well, just
fill it up with something.
Fill it up with some kind of filler. Maybe we've created a new delicacy. Yeah, we'll cut the bagels out that way.
Say that you've perhaps stumbled on something unique here.
Well, I'm not the originator of this. There's a famous donut company in Canada, and they were cutting out the holes to make the donuts. And then they decided to, well, let's bake the donut hole. And, they just called it a little bit. But you know what? Over the period of time, that hole cost more than the donut. And I thought, well, this is a brilliant marketing strategy, except that why are people buying the whole at a premium from the rest of the donut? Well, I guess they just like the creature comfort of being able to pick up that little tiny piece as opposed to having to punch into a bigger piece.
I think they call them munchkins in the US.
Yeah, well, I don't want to give free advertising. But it was a brilliant marketing strategy. But really and truly, what they did was they found that the whole was more valuable than the donut. And without the whole, there is no donut, and without the whole, there is no bagel. If you take the whole out, you've got a bun. It's not a bagel. Okay. Oh, it's the same thing. Well, no, it's not.
Jelly
It's
donuts don't have a hole.
The
out.
donut. Yeah, it's the donut.
The jelly donuts don't have a hole, do they? Or the cream?
Then
No,
they're
but
not donuts.
they inject the hole inside
Yeah.
by pushing the cream in and making this tensity inside and fills you up. Like that's a really good example, Mark. I'm really glad you brought that up because I mean, let's face it. There's a vacuum outside of the magnetosphere of the planet, and there's a vacuum on the inside. Okay, so if we have a vacuum on the inside, how come, we are puffy, and some of us are really puffy. We call them fat people, but all people are puffy. Okay, so if we have a vacuum on the inside, what balances that off? It's the same thing when you look at the bagel. Why, if you remove that hole in the bagel, why doesn't the bagel just collapse? Why doesn't the bagel just shrink, and fill up that hole? Why does it just contract? Because there's a magnetical balance. Just because I removed the hole has a magnetical gravitational relationship. The bagel has a magnetical gravitational relationship. The residue of moving the center part from the bagel has a magnetical gravitational relationship. That's why it doesn't collapse. It's a balance, it's an equilibrium.
So even though the physicality was removed, the fields are still there. Was that your point?
Wow, thank you very much, Mark. A+ to you, buddy.
When
Thank
we
you.
kidney out, the physical kidney is gone, but the fields are still there. And
A++. You're getting even better. You're more than A. You're A++. Yes. Congratulations, Mark. Brilliant.
yeah, sometimes we stumble on things.
Well, this is it. As part of the practical teaching, we have to be able to talk to ordinary people. I mean, not everybody understands atoms and protons and things like that. But, there is an element that is supporting all of our knowledge in our existence, and we're just not taking into account because we are, feedback dominant. So, that's why we all want to be American Idols. Who has that X factor? Well, yeah, throw the money at them. Okay, well, I want to be rich. Okay, so you're financially rich. But, if you are a famous star, you can't go to the grocery store and shop like an average person. You can't move anywhere. Everywhere you go, oh, can I have your autograph? Oh, you're so famous, and all that. So there's a price to pay.
Okay, anything else we need to share, or does anyone have a different topic they'd like to bring up?
Well, I
How
just
many
want to thank.
bagels were consumed in the testing process of making the whole?
Okay, I must confess, 4.
That's the
I hope you
core
had
issue.
cream cheese on it to make it tasty.
Well,
What
of
about
course,
whipped cream and honey or something? Fruits, anything.
avocado.
Oh yeah, avo's good.
Thank you all for allowing me to present, and I'm glad you're appreciating the lighthearted method of teaching. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very good. Then if there's no further discussion, we'll play the final disclaimer. Remember the one planet in the public Zoom room on Tuesday at 4 p.m. And then, of course, the reactor group on Wednesday, another public program everyone can join at 7 a.m. on Wednesdays. And, of course, the Knowledge Seekers Workshop on Thursday at 9 a.m. But there's many other public teachings in China, I'm sure, Brazil as well. And so feel free to join any one of those as we're becoming this one planet, one nation, one race. And we have a new city to operate out of, let's say, as well. But it's just in its infancy. And again, there's a lot of little touches to be added. But we're very proud to be here and trying to deliver this gift to humanity, as this will bring the people out of the poverty of the physicality as well as the poverty of our thinking and understanding. So if there's no further, anyone have something else they've been holding they'd like to share, feel free. Otherwise, I'll play the final disclaimer and the session will end. Of course, it never ends. One day goes into the next, and 1 week goes into the next, and so on and so forth. So we're continuing on. Yes, Karina's been applauding your teaching or your explanation on these questions. Thank you, Karina. Alex, that was for you. Okay, so we'll play the disclaimer and the session will come to an end. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Mark, you have to take the screen.
Readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.